Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 63. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge on the CGS forums, and I am joined as always by my co-host Jim. I may be in a hospital bed, but I am still a podcasting machine. So says the Sensei of the Whatnot Segulin.
Dude, it hurts when I laugh, man. Stop. How's it going, eh?
Hey, everybody. Before I get into the show, I want to give a shout-out to the NY Comic-Con. The New York Comic-Con this year is once again holding the podcast arena, and Jim and I are going to be there. This is going to be a little bit of an informal ad, but I want to make sure to put it on the show and reference everybody to nycomiccon.com. Check out the guest list of people that are going to be there. Grant Morrison, Jeff Johns, Gail Simone's going to be there. Frank Miller's going to be there in some capacity. We've got Denny O'Neill's going to be an artist alley. There's like a who's who of artists. Our friend Jamal Eigel's going to be there. Bob Wyachek, who was on our show, is going to be there. The guys from Tiny Titans are going to be there. I urge you to go to nycomiccon.com, click on the guests. Click on the Artist Alley. Take a look at all the people that are going to be there. Click on the Podcast Arena and see some of our fellow podcasters that are going to be there. It's really going to be an incredible experience this year. I am so excited by just the guest list that seems to be constantly growing. It's right now Thursday night at 11:56, and I'm doing a quick little recording right now to add to our introduction of the show, just to give you kind of an update on where our show is at and what's been going on the past week and a half so much for Jim and myself. Jim wound up in the hospital. He had some colon issues, and part of this recording actually is taking place while he is in his hospital bed. I called him up with the intention of just doing a quick little show intro, figured it'd be kind of funny to have him on from the hospital, and he agreed. He thought it was hysterical. I didn't expect that we'd actually start chatting comics, and we did, and I recorded it. It's very Speeding Bullets style because it was off the cuff, and we were just chatting about random comics that we'd read during the week, but it wound up being a very good segment. I highly recommend that you take a look at the show notes for this episode as it goes through, because as I'm editing the show, I'm going to put in the show notes the comics that Jim and I talk about, so that way we don't spoil anything for you specifically. This is definitely a spoiler-filled segment. We're geeking out about current comics that are out, so I definitely urge you to check the show notes to make sure that we don't spoil anything for you. But I found it was a fun segment, especially because we recorded it while he was in a hospital. And I felt bad at one point, and because I thought that like I was keeping him on too long. And you'll see there's a part in the segment where he had to go. So then I called him back later, and he said, "Do you want to keep recording?" And I was just kind of, all right. So then we went on and recorded even more. So we got about an hour and 15 minutes or so is what I remember that we got out of that between the two segments. So that's going to be on here. We also, prior to his going into the hospital, recorded 2 issues of Countdown that we were going to follow up on and do a couple more issues, but obviously with him going into the hospital, we never got the time. So it's Countdown issues 16 and 15. We get pretty in-depth on those. So it's a pretty full show, considering the fact that we've had a crazy week. I had 2 deaths. One was my wife's grandmother passed away, unfortunately, and so we've been dealing with the wake and the funeral and getting together with family for that. And I just found out that a very close friend of the family has passed away. So this has been really just a crazy week and a half for both Jim and myself, between him being in the hospital and between funeral issues on my own family end. So I want to thank all of you for your patience. There's a lot of you on the forum who have had time to come back and give well wishes, and I really appreciate that. Some of you, maybe you just didn't have a chance to respond or anything and just had both of us in your thoughts. That's great. For the rest of you, just kind of an update on why we've been a little AWOL and the show came out a little later than we expected. I expected to have just the Countdown segment out to you much sooner than this. This has actually been my first chance to sit down and do anything show-related. We've got a mad scramble because Jim's going on vacation Saturday. It's Thursday night right now, and we've got to get in a recording tomorrow to have a show available while he's gone. So we had to change up the lineup real quick because we're scrambling to put together a show, and we don't, you know how we are, we really don't like to half-ass any of the episodes. We want to put some depth into it. We are going to, for our next episode, jump right into our Raging Oscars for Wildstorm because we want to continue that segment. That is going to be the lead-off feature. We are also going to get back into Countdown. The reason why is the Countdown segment for Jim and myself is a lot easier for us to put together in short notice and kind of scramble to put that together because it'll fit our whole Countdown theme of getting caught up by the time Final Crisis comes in. We are going to jump back to Seven Soldiers. A lot of people have been asking about this, and it's a really good question when we're going to get back to that. What we're trying to do right now is get caught up on Countdown and get in a lot of other segments that we've been trying to get together with listener guests and creator guests and things that we've been trying to put together. Those are going to be our priorities at the moment. This summer, as Final Crisis hits, we are going to jump back to Seven Soldiers because I think that series is supposed to play pretty heavily, from what I've been reading, into Final Crisis. So we'll make sure to go back to that, go in depth on it. We haven't ignored that. We are going to jump back to it. So like I said, our next episode is going to be, it was supposed to be our 2-year anniversary show because March 22nd is our 2-year anniversary. We are going to delay that 2-year anniversary show a episode only because Jim and I we have had no time to prep for that. That is going to be completely now. We're not going to do it in 2 parts. We're going to do the whole thing on New Frontier. That was going to originally be a 2-part segment, and now we're just going to make that our 2-year anniversary special. It's going to be a pretty depth-filled show because I have reread The Absolute after watching the video for the first time, and I went through and I reread the whole Absolute. I've read the special now. I went back and rewatched the film. I encourage everybody, if you have not done this, if you've never read the original work, or if you haven't read the original work in a long time, I know I've said this before, it really changed my experience on a very heavy level. I went in, I watched the DVD the first time, I really enjoyed it. I went through and read the Absolute, got into that whole experience, and then watched the DVD again and was blown away. Very different experience after having read the work and had a whole big multimedia experience where the characters kind of came alive, and I had all the segments that were presented in the Absolute, and honestly, you can do this with the trades, the hardcover, whatever versions you've got of New Frontier. I urge you to pick up the trades of the original work if you have not read those yet, and enjoy those. Go back and watch the DVD again. You're going to see a very different experience, and it really takes the whole thing to a very new level because the whole thing is a very ambitious project if you put it all together. So definitely, I encourage you to go back and do that because we're going to have a really heavy discussion on both for our 2-year anniversary show. Please, if you want to send in audio comments or emails for that 2-year anniversary show, we would love to have you guys a part of it in any capacity. That's send them to ragingbullets@gmail.com. If you ever want to contact Jim directly, I know he says it for the Top Bullet segments, but it's senseiofwhatnot@gmail.com. I don't shout that out enough on the show, mainly because he wasn't using that email address too much up until now that we're doing Top Bullets. So if you want to contact Jim directly, senseiofwhatnot@gmail.com. All right, I'm going to stop here and get you right back into the show. That way you can kind of hear our discussions from Jim at the hospital and our original countdown recording. There is a blooper reel that's going to be at the end. Jim and I had a very funny discussion before we recorded the countdown segment, which was before he went to the hospital. Jim always sits in this fold-up chair in the corner of my office. The reason why it's a fold-up chair is it's a little office, that I've got my mics in, the computers, and it's basically my comic room. When Jim's not here, I have the chair folded up in the corner. Well, you're going to hear a segment where Jim was recording from home, sitting in the exact same chair that I have folding up here, which is hysterical because he always complains at how uncomfortable he is. And so definitely check out that segment at the end because we have a little funny rant about that. And it's more fitting at the end of the show as we close out the show than to be a part of our actual general comic discussion. That's why I put that there. Good friend of the show, Lord Shaper, Damien, is doing a podcast called Welcome to Heavenside, which is a look at the Dr. Sleepless comic by Warren Ellis. He is a huge fan of this comic and is geeking out on that. In order to check that out, you want to go to the reader feed readerfeed.blogspot.com. One more time, that's the readerfeed.blogspot.com. Damien is a good friend of the show. I urge you to check it out. He's geeking out about Dr. Sleepless, which is a book that's very important to him. The Reader Feed actually has a number of mini podcasts on there. The whole premise is these are smaller characters. These are books that people have a lot of passion for that they want to rant and talk about. You know from this show that immediately grabs me and captures me right away because I'm all about geeking out about the comics and I love hearing other people doing that. And this is great because it's all across comic companies. One of them is by John Hook. It's The Fury of Iron Fist. The Fellcast by Derek Howard, which focuses on Fell by Warren Ellis and Ben Templesmith. And then there's, of course, Welcome to the Heavenside by Damian Smith, Lord Shaper, where he takes a look at Dr. Sleepless, which is by Warren Ellis and Ivan Rodriguez. And you'll get a chance to hear all of them if you take a look at that feed. There's 4 episodes up so far. 2 of them focus on the Fury of Iron Fist. 1 focuses on Fell. And 1 is the most recent one. Episode 4 is by Lord Shaper, Damian Smith, looking at Dr. Sleepless. So that's the readerfeed.blogspot.com. Definitely check that out. I also want to give a shout out to the Comics Now magazine. Issue number 2 came out. A lot of our good friends from Comic Geek Beat are involved in there. A lot of our fellow podcasters are involved in putting together articles that are in there, as well as fellow forum members are responsible for putting the articles together. It is a wonderful magazine. It comes out quarterly. It's Comics Now number 2. Both have featured a look at podcasts, going through the history of podcasting, just talking about podcasting in general, which is really nice to have a comics magazine that's not afraid to delve into that as well. They have wonderful articles all about comics from the past to the present day. They're really in-depth. It's definitely a today magazine. It's a very now feel to it, which is totally fits the title Comics Now. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, definitely go check out the Comics Now magazine. Once again, thank you for your patience this week, and let me get you right into the show. You up for telling everyone what kind of podcast we are?
Oh, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in depth in a plot line, story twists, and whatnot, so the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
You and I were joking around when we did the countdown discussion that's going to be on this episode about how you were uncomfortable sitting in your chair at home, about how you're always uncomfortable sitting here. Next thing I know, I wake up this morning and I find out there's a voicemail message from your mom saying you're in the hospital. What the hell happened?
Yes, I am in Euclid General Hospital here in Euclid, Ohio. I went to work yesterday, and I was uncomfortable, like, the stomach, area, abdominal region, and, I got to about 10, 11 o'clock, and I was, like, almost doubled over in pain. So I went to the ER, and I have, it's like diverticulitis or diverticulosis or something like that. It's inflamed colon. So that's the technical jargon in my own terms because I can't pronounce this stuff. But yeah, it's been a fun couple days.
Now, do they know who you are? Did you tell them that I'm the Sensei of the whatnot? I record podcasts. You need to get me out of here.
Well, that's why they gave me my own private room, and I got the I got my nice TV here I can watch, and Mom just dropped off some comics, so I got stuff to read. I got I'm finally going to finish up that Showcase Presents Elongated Man because what else can I do? I can read now. I got free time to read, so I'll get to finish that off.
Have you read that at all?
I've read parts of it, but I'm about halfway through with it now, so now I'll be able to finish it up. So that's
how do you like it?
I like it. I'm enjoying it, dude. It's kind of neat to see the different era Ralph, but there's still pieces of him that I like, from present day. I'm seeing that in those, so I'm like, this is kind of cool.
I want to see those come back so bad, because that was all backup story.
Mm-hmm.
Those were backup tales, but they read really well. I started reading that one as well. And it's funny, I'm almost positive all of it is backup tales that came from various comic books. I think.
Yeah, mostly the Flash. I think he's in most of the Flash stuff, isn't he?
Yeah, and then he and I thought there were parts where he was in Detective Comics too. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I know that they were backup stories. And when I was reading it, I wasn't really paying attention to where the backups came from. But that's a great way to take characters like Ralph and other characters who maybe on their own aren't going to be able to carry a book, but they're really interesting to read about. Tack them on to like a Batman book, tack them on to the Flash, tack them on to Green Lantern, Green Arrow, things like that. I'd honestly pay a little bit more for my books for a backup story to be in there.
Oh, dude, yeah. It's the more bang for the buck. A lot of people will say they pick up group or team books because there's more heroes, so you figure there's more stuff going on. Well, this is another way to take a solo title and beef it up a little bit. Even like some of these newer heroes that people don't know, like the new Blue Beetle. You add a backup story onto it, that'll even escalate it even more. Granted, I'm enjoying Blue Beetle as it is, so I don't need it, but I could see someone saying, hey, I can pick up this title with 2 heroes, or I can pick up this title for 1, so I don't know. It makes more sense to me that people would gravitate towards the one with 2 people.
You've got a really clear connection to the hospital. Can you work out a deal with them that maybe anytime we have to do a Skype call, you could do it from there?
Well, we can try. I personally, if I can get out of here, as soon as I can get out of here, I'll be happy because, this really stinks. It literally does hurt every time I laugh, just so people know. So when I'm laughing, I'm really wincing in pain, so I'm going to try not to.
But that fits the whole pain theme that you were talking about on when we did this recording, that you said that you actually are on your game when you're in pain. So it's,
see, there we go, yeah. I play through the pain, man.
If you don't know what we're talking about, actually, you won't know what we're talking about because you haven't heard it yet. On the end of this episode, what we usually do for like the blooper reel and all that, Jim and I had this discussion before we started recording the countdown segment that's on this episode. And you were talking about how you were sitting on the pull-out chair at home because you prefer to be in pain and it puts you in your game. So I'll let people just hear that discussion at the end of the show.
Oh, God. You know, right now people are going, what the hell are these two idiots talking about?
You haven't read yet, Jim, if I remember correctly, you haven't read the actual New Frontier?
Yeah, that was going to be this weekend's reading, but here I am.
We're going to have a discussion, and I don't know if you're going to have a chance to read it beforehand, but when we do have the discussion, I'm going to briefly kind of talk about some of the things that are outside the DVD. But the majority of the meat of our discussion is going to be the DVD release itself. But I think it'll be interesting for me to come at it from the standpoint of, I actually read New Frontier first, saw the movie. Now I'm going back through and reading the Absolute, because I haven't read my Absolute yet of New Frontier. I actually read the original release when it came out. Actually, what I gave you is what I read. Yeah. So you've got the trades of New Frontier that I gave you from my collection, and I'm reading the Absolute now, so we can have a little kind of side discussion on that as it fits into the events that are going in that DVD. But that'll be a nice episode. And 2 years of Raging Bull. Did you think we'd be around for 2 years, dude?
No way. We said this at the 1 year mark. We didn't think we'd make 1 year. Now we're on 2 year mark. We're like, what the heck is going on here, man? It's been fun.
How caught up are you on Countdown to Adventure?
I'm pretty caught up. I think just the most. An issue just came out, right?
Yeah, episode. Now I can't be saying episode. Issue 7 came out, which is the second last one of this particular series. I haven't read that one yet. I
haven't read that one either.
I just read issue 6.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, in the backup story, did you see who one of the featured characters was? Justin Gray got to write again.
Yeah.
As an eagle.
Yeah, and I saw that. I liked that. I thought that was him, and I was like, wait, isn't that the guy from the other Hawkman story?
Right, which Justin Gray also penned with Jimmy Palmiotti. So I was geeking out when I was reading that Forerunner backup because the Thanagarians are in there, which I love when Justin Gray does something with the Thanagarians and that whole story. And I'm loving Adam Beach and his work on the 52 characters. You know, Adam Strange and Animal Man and Starfire. That is pretty dead. I mean, not pretty. It's very dead on to what I wanted from that 52 group. I wanted to see more of those characters. I actually like that they separated Starfire and Animal Man at first and dealt with like that love triangle. That's not so much a love triangle, but it would be a jealousy thing. I could imagine with his wife Ellen. Buddy just came back. Now this girl Starfire's living at their house, who's this hot orange chick. There's obviously a very close bond between the two of them for their year away. You know, he was away from his wife for 1 full year with this woman. Mm-hmm. And Buddy obviously is very protective of Corey, to the point where Corey isn't going back to the people she knows and loves in the Titans. She's sticking with Buddy right now.
Yeah, in a way, I was kind of shocked to see that she wouldn't go to the Titans, that she wouldn't. But yeah, I like it, and I was like, what the heck? It was one of those weird things for me, because I understand it, because you think about what they went through. Because that was that was a nonstop, just of, oh my God, we're about to die again, we're about to die again, we're about to die again, for 1 full year of that, for them to go through that. So I can see the closeness that she would go to Buddy, when she doesn't have her powers, but it was weird for me to see her not contact the Titan and say, hey, I'm back on Earth.
Well, it's also, to me, it's also like a recovery period, Jim. Like, and I actually like the realism of that. We got to follow their journey for a full year, and they went through, like you said, trauma after trauma after trauma. And we're seeing now that the two of them have come back. Buddy's powers aren't acting the way that he expects them to. She has no access to her powers currently. And that it's a geek out thing for me to see these two characters together and going through this kind of, like I said, even Adam Strange is going through this recovery because he's gone back to Ran, and he can't get back into his life because he's been replaced.
Yeah, that whole story was kind of cool. I liked the new defender of Ran and all that stuff, and the fact that he was a whack job. I liked that. I thought that was just a nice addition to it. And also, it showed why it's not the gadgets that make him a hero. it is the man behind the gadgets that make him such a cool hero. And this story arc really, I liked him in 52, but this is another thing where it's like cementing into stuff where I'm like, more stories about him I will pick up and read because I'm seeing him being such a cool guy and such a cool character.
And there's a showcase volume out with him, and he is a character who I also recommend the miniseries. There is an Adam Strange miniseries that came out that I will point you to.
More stuff to buy. Thanks.
Well, if you're liking the character, though, it actually is it's a prelude to the Ranthanagar stuff. I actually have. You can borrow the trade.
You know me. I'll probably pick it up.
The current Hellblazer writer is the one that names. I'm drawing a complete blank at the moment. The current Hellblazer writer is the same one who wrote that particular miniseries. So if you're liking, are you reading Hellblazer right now?
In trade.
I am too. I did the same thing. I actually picked up the. I find that I'm doing that like DMZ. You're going to laugh. Mm-hmm. DMZ I'm picking up in trades right now. Not because, and that's no comment on the quality, I really enjoy reading that in trades. Like, I enjoy reading the whole storyline and just kind of delving into it in one complete contained volume. Vertigo, I feel pretty safe getting a lot of their stuff in trade. I do find that if it's a series that I'm enjoying in trade and I hear that their numbers are in trouble, I start picking it up monthly just because I really like the book. But like things like Fables, DMZ, Jack of Fables, stuff like that I've gone exclusively to trade on because I just find that I was previously stockpiling the monthly issues anyway, and I'm finding that's seeing as I was doing that, I like having it collected, so I'm just waiting for those trades.
Yeah, and actually I've shifted over my Vertigo stuff to trade now for basically the same reason. It's a nice to have that, to sit down and read it from beginning to end. It's a cool flow through and a really enjoyable read that way.
And the only reason, it's funny, I feel more confident in doing that with Vertigo than I necessarily do some of my titles in the DC Universe, because there's certain titles in the DC Universe just because I'm afraid they'll be canceled if I'm not picking them up monthly. Not that my one number matters, but I figure that there's a lot of people who have that same mentality. But when I look at the Vertigo stuff, when you go to a Vertigo panel at any of the conventions, they talk an awful lot about the collected market as well as the monthly market. So they look very heavily at both. Because Vertigo, obviously, I'm sure gets a certain amount of attention in bookstores and libraries and things like that. So it is one of those. It's one of those groups that I tend to think that a good trade sale in Vertigo will save a book.
Yeah, they seem to have that flow going, and I like that. I like some of the initial stuff. If they're launching a new series or a new something and whatnot, I'll pick up the individuals for it. Just for usually the first a couple to see if I like it, and definitely through the first story arc, and then maybe when the second story arc pops up, I'll shift to trade. Granted, I said that, but I tried to do that with DMZ and I couldn't. But I don't know. Well, I'm trying to go back to DMZ as trade, and it's tough. But
I'm that way too. What happened with me is DMZ, not because I don't love it, I just got so far behind on my issues of DMZ that I found that I was in the same spot that I would have been with the trades. And I'm like, you know what? I might as well just go to the trades because I really enjoy reading it this way. Because I found that I really liked reading a bank of issues. I had the same thing when I read Preacher back when it was originally being released. That was before really I was getting some trades, but it was very, very a minute amount. Now I'm more into collected editions than I've ever been. And the Preacher stuff, when that came out, I found that I was reading and deliberately waiting until the whole arc was done with Preacher and going through and reading it, and I just loved that whole experience. So I found that I did that with Why the Last Man. A lot of these Vertigo stories, I'm just doing that. I find that if I'm picking the Vertigo book up monthly and reading it monthly as it comes out, I stay monthly. But I find now the ones that I'm stockpiling, I'm just shifting over to trades, just because I do think that Vertigo pays a lot of attention to it. So, did you get Tiny Titans too?
Yes.
Did you get to read it yet?
No, I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
I won't spoil anything for it, but it was... The only thing I will comment on real quick, the terabits that they were talking about were really funny.
Oh, cool. Yeah, the order came on, Thursday? It came on Thursday, and Friday I was here, so that was another thing. I was like, I'll read it over the weekend. Cool.
Have you had a chance to look at the cover?
No, I haven't even opened my box yet. That the
do you mind if I talk about the cover?
Oh, go ahead.
The cover has the Tiny Titans versus the Fearsome Five, and
cool.
they're standing toe to toe. You know, you got Plasmus with his lollipop, but you have Speedy. He's got a trick arrow which has a cupcake on the end. You have the Flash with paper airplanes, Aqualad with his fishbowl, his typical fishbowl, Robin with a crayon. But then they're facing off with the Fearsome Five, who have various school supplies. One of them has glue that they're ready to fight with. Wonder Girl and one of the members of the Fearsome Five are sitting on the swings. When I look at these covers, I just start geeking out because the book looks fun right when you grab it and pick it up.
Yeah.
And it was another one of those, I'm going to say ditto to what I said last week without going and spoiling anything for you at the moment, in the sense that they jump between segments. They're very well paced. They're just a great deal of fun. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there for comic fans. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there for just people who never approached it before. It's just a fun book. I honestly want to say I liked issue 2 even better than issue 1.
Oh, cool. That's something to look forward to.
I also got this week. Did you have any issues of Justice League International, the JLA series by Giffen and DeMatteis?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
They're starting to release in hardcover the series, and I don't know how far they're going to go with it. I'm hoping they collect the whole thing because I really like this. It's actually issues 1 through 7, and 7 was an oversized issue. And it was kind of funny because we were just talking about extra page counts, how we'd pay a little bit more for a backup story if it was in there. And I'm talking about like maybe tack on an extra 50 cents or something like that, and make it a meaty backup story. But I'm looking at this Justice League International, and it had an oversized issue in issue 7. And I'm going to go through. I actually started reading this. I read through issue 1 already. And I've got so much stuff that I'm reading at the moment that I'm like geeking out when I get these things, but I'm like, when am I going to find time to read them all? This one, though, I did pick up and start reading right away. The artwork is by Kevin Maguire, and the whole art team in general, it's like kudos to them. The art holds up very, very well, considering that, this book's been, I'm trying to look for the date on when it was out. I don't really have it at the moment. But, it was originally released in 1987. So
cool.
But it started off, it was Justice League for issues 1 through 6, then it turned to Justice League International with number 7, where basically they were granted the international rights. They changed their whole focus. Instead of just being about America, they became about world issues. And it's really a neat series. There's a lot of humor in the series. So
now, which members? Who's in the league?
Well, the initial kickoff membership was just looking from the cover right now and they had like a rotating cast, but this was right after I'm almost positive it was right after the Legends miniseries, and it was Batman, Martian Manhunter, Blue Beetle, Guy Gardner, Black Canary, Mr. Miracle. And I'm trying to remember who else they added from the get-go. Captain Marvel was in there. Let's see. Dr. Fate, the female Dr. Light, and Oberon. I don't know if you know who Oberon is. Oberon he was kind of the sidekick back in the New Gods stuff of Mr. Miracle.
Oh, okay.
But he was a part of the team, too. He wasn't like I want to say he was almost like the snapper car of the team, but I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. He tended to, help around the base of operations where he helped Max Lord there. So it's an interesting series. And it's something, I wouldn't dismiss it because of the fact that there's humor contained within, because they're really, really good stories. And there's some great characterizations in there. So I would definitely, if you have an interest at all, that's being collected in hardcover now. It's a great way to read it because you're getting a nice meaty collection in a volume that looks really, really nice on a bookshelf after you're done reading it. So just kind of something I wanted to throw out there. Also came from you this week was Showcase Presents The Phantom Stranger Volume 2. And that's one, I read the first volume of it, and I really enjoyed those stories. So this is a showcase that I'm going to jump right back into and enjoy. A lot of collected stuff I got this week, too. Huh. My DMZ Friendly Fire came this week as well.
Yeah.
So, speaking of page counts, I don't know if you heard on the internet anywhere, they're going to be with the last issue of Trials of Shazam and with Salvation Run number 7. So it's Trials of Shazam number 12, Salvation Run number 7. They're increasing the page count.
Really?
And it's going to cost a little bit more, but in order to finish the stories and finish them without
the way they want to.
Yeah, they're going to add some page counts. How do you feel? Like, is it worth it to you to pay a little bit more to get some extra pages to get? Because if you remember when Green Lantern, and we didn't pay extra for that, but when that Sinestro Corps War ended, it had more pages to it, and there's a little bit more bang for that. And I don't think we paid more for that, did we?
No, I don't think so.
But in this case, I mean, I guess that's part of what I wanted to ask. Does it bother you to pay a little bit more to get a few extra pages to get the story done right?
Me, personally, no. But I'm just going to imagine there's probably people who are just furious about this, and they should have got the page done right. They should have paced it better. And
no, you know what? I gotta say, I've been really pleasantly surprised by the reactions that I've seen so far on the internet.
Cool.
Most people are very positive about it. The people who are the naysayers are the ones that don't like the series. Like, for example, people that don't like Trials of Shazam are obviously griping because they don't like it anyway.
Yeah.
Which, it's kind of, and I guess my question would be, if you're not liking it, what do you care?
Yeah.
I'm loving Trials of Shazam, and I mean, I love the traditional Captain Marvel thing. You heard me geek out about what Jeff Smith did. I love the Jerry Ordway stuff. I actually picked up the showcase of the original stuff. I know this is a different take on it. I'm enjoying what Winnick's doing though with this different take. To me, I would rather them end it right and add some, for those of us that are enjoying it. And I'm baffled by the people, because that's what I said. The majority of the negative reactions are people like, why are you even reading this? You don't like it.
Here's my take on that is there are probably people who, the collector mentality where they started it, so they're going to complete the limited series, and now they're like, dang it, I got to pay a little bit more money for this, So I can see that. And to be honest, if I was just getting it to have the full series, I would be upset about it. But I am getting it because I'm still enjoying reading it. I'm still, I'm liking what Winnick's doing with it. The art wasn't my favorite style of art, but as the issues have gone on, and after I actually did a reread through some of the issues, did a couple issues, bam, 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 back to back, I'm starting to like the art a little bit more even. So it's, for me, paying a little bit extra for it won't matter that much.
Salvation Run. I know. I'm assuming you're enjoying Salvation Run as much
Dude,
as I am.
I tell you, they could charge me double for it, and I'd pick it up. That's how much I'm liking that series.
Yeah, and Willingham is doing a wonderful job over on that book. Yeah. To me, please add pages if you're going to end it right. Yeah. I have no problem with that. I'll pay a little extra for it. I want a good ending, and I'll pay a little extra. They're giving me something more for it. Like if they were giving me the same page count and they wanted to charge me extra, I'm going to be ticked. But if you're giving me something more, sure, let's do it. Yeah. That's fine. I got no problem with that at all. Just make it good, and then that'll be the end result.
And I want a significant ending with Salvation Run, and I think we're going to get the significant ending. We're going to get something that, has a massive whoa when we put it down. I think we're going to get that ending, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what's going to come out of it, because I see a lot of angry villains that are going to be coming out of this thing.
Oh yeah,
and I want to see
a lot of dead villains too. That's what's getting me. The names that are dropping. I'm like, they didn't just, oh my God, they just killed him off. You can't kill him off. He's the main villain. So yeah, I liked it.
But it's an interesting look at different societies that creep up when you're left to your own devices. They're left on this desolate planet where they've got to come up with their own ways of surviving. And you see that the dominant villains in the DC universe start to take control. And there's some different philosophies based on, from psychopathic to logical that kind of creep up.
Yeah.
And people follow both for some very strong reasons. Like, in both cases, the sides that the villains are joining make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Their reasoning why they're following certain people that they are. And that's what I've really loved about this series has been just... At first, I was kind of like, why would anybody follow that person? Because, we're spoiling anyway, so might as well talk about it. Joker and Luthor are obviously the two dominant forces that come on. And my first thought is, why would anybody follow the Joker other than you're afraid of getting killed? Yeah. In which case, I would side with Team Luthor. But as we start to see people creep over to the Joker's side and their reasonings why they're doing it, it makes a lot of sense. because, the Joker's your action man. He doesn't really care about thinking things through. It's more of he's more of the man of the moment, and he strives to have that big moment, and a lot of times when you're frustrated that you're stuck on a planet, you don't want to sit with the people that are sitting around and planning like Luthor is. Whereas in my case, I think I would have a lot more patience and want to be with the planning guy because he's the one who's going to eventually discover how to get us off that rock.
Oh yeah, I definitely would be Team Luthor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely would be that, and I'd also, I'd probably be buddy pally pal with Bane and Deadshot as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are two, whether they have weapons or have anything, they're still killers and they're still badass sons of guns, and I'd be like, hey, buddy, we're cool, all right, So and I like the fact that Luthor made them like his bodyguards and all that stuff, where he recognized, their position and recognized who they are, and put them in kind of like a position of power, if you will.
I want to see more out of Bane in the DC universe again.
Mm-hmm.
Something got so lost with him along the way. You go back to Nightfall and see that character. He psychologically took apart the Batman. Now, granted, the main villain of Nightfall, and Comic Geek Speak had a great interview with Denny O'Neil where the main villain, of Nightfall was, in fact, Azrael, not Bane. Bane was meant to serve as a means to get Bruce Wayne where they needed him to be in order to have, what they had happen where Azrael took over for him. But Bane was such a great villain in there. He was so well developed in there. And I enjoyed stories following, like Legacy. It was a story with Ra's al Ghul that followed afterwards involving a contagion, a virus that got released. And he had something to do with that. And Bane was so good in that story, and somewhere along the way, I think who Bane really is and what made Bane such a great villain in Nightfall got lost. And I'm not saying it was in Legacy, but it was somewhere, down the road afterwards. And I think the character lost his identity. I'd like to see that identity brought back because he is a wonderful adversary for Batman. He's that a character that follows that original template that he had, where he's not just the brute. He's the thinking man's character. He's not the Batman and Robin gel-coated one or whatever that goop was that was inside him from that movie.
Oh. Dude, we're not even going to talk about that because that wasn't Bane.
No, they just got a character so wrong.
Yeah, that was the desecration of God and country because that was just so wrong.
I don't know if I would go. Wait a minute. I don't know if I'd go that far. That was a desecration of God and country.
Yes, I will stand by that statement.
Is that really what you felt after that?
Oh, dude, I was angry when I saw that.
I was too, but I don't know that I would call it a desecration of God and country.
Yes, I stand behind the statement.
I just, what the problem was? I think it was little moments like that are what really ruined that movie because that didn't need to be Bane. That could have been any thug.
They could have called him Plant Guy, Plant Man, and
I would have been fine with that.
Have him make him look like Sigmund the Sea Monster. That's who they should have had.
That would have at least had a humor value to it.
Yeah,
like gooey Plant Guy.
Yeah, that's what they should have done with that, and not gone Bane and.
And they were going for humor value with that character.
Yeah, and he's the wrong guy. That's the thing I really digged about Bane was he is that psychological, he is that very intelligent, strategically oriented villain. He's not just this powerhouse. He's not just this, killer. He is a thinking villain. He could actually, if he wanted to, he could be one of the crime bosses. He could take over, pick a city and take it over. But that's not his style. That's not his thing because that draws too much attention to you. And he recognizes that when you try to take over a city, when you try to take over the world, you're going to get more than just one hero coming after you. What he does is he's a contracted, villain. And it's a great life and it's a good, way to stay out of jail and whatnot. So I'd like Bane, I like how he is and who he is, and the stuff is fitting for him. Just like when he jumped on Suicide Squad, that made sense for him. He needed to do that to get out of, his problem. So that, it's fitting for him. I like it.
I want to see a re-explanation of the character, and we're gradually seeing that because I agree with you. Team Luthor makes more sense for Bane. If he had gone with the Joker, actually, it would have really irritated me.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I do like about him is that he is your planning guy, as well as being strong. When I think a lot of times the fact that he got jacked up on Venom, writers didn't know how to keep that psychological presence that the original team created for the character and carried through for quite some time. There were Bane stories that followed Nightfall that were quite good with the character. And I think something got lost along the way, and I want to see that character kind of re-explained and get back to his roots, because he is really just a wonderful Bat villain. I don't know if you saw, it looks like Hush is going to be making an appearance in Detective Comics.
Ooh.
Yeah, which I'd like to see Paul Dini do something with Hush, because that's another character that I think something got lost with him along the way, too. And it's another character I'd like to see come back and really be an interesting part of the DC universe. Because the original Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee, series where they worked with him was tremendous. And something really got lost with that guy along the way. It was that was a villain gone wrong. I don't know if did you read the Gotham Knights stuff?
Say again?
Did you read the Gotham Knights stuff at the end with him?
No.
There was. I'll have to let you borrow the issues of that one.
Was it in the Hush trade?
Which Hush trade? I don't have. There was a few Hush trades afterwards. Okay. When you say the Hush trade, you mean the?
Yeah, like the Hush one, the first.
Well, no, Hush was the Jim Lee, Jeff Loeb. Oh, I see what you're saying. You mean, was this the original story?
Yeah.
No, there was multiple follow-up stories involving Hush.
Okay.
Some were good, some were not so good.
Oh, okay.
It was... I understood what they were trying to do in the Gotham Knights series, and it just kind of fell a little bit short.
Okay.
It wasn't bad, per se. I don't like when... It's something that bothers me when a villain kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Like, I think I would have enjoyed that Gotham Knights closing story if it had been another villain other than Hush. Is I guess what I'm trying to say. Because I liked what they were trying to do. It just... it seemed like who Hush was getting a little lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
So...
Okay.
Are you reading, speaking of Batman, are you reading Gotham Underground?
Oh, yes. I'm reading and enjoying it. Yeah. I like especially because you got a possible story going on. Is it really Stephanie? Is it not? I personally don't think it is, but... Well,
did you notice, too, though, that it looks like in Robin we're going to see a little bit
They had the Violet, and I think that's who Spoiler is in Gotham Knights, that Violet person.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think that's Stephanie. I think it's, the one character they kind of introduced, sort of.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be an interesting... I'm liking, really, the whole Batman universe seems to be coming together. It's funny, at the end of 2007 is where... And I'm a huge Batman fan. It was funny, I had a question on Ask Dr. Norge on the forum, where people were asking me about... there was one of our listeners who asked how I got so into Hawkman. And I mentioned, what the stuff that Jeff Johns was doing in JSA, actually started back with Hawkworld, but I really kicked off for me in JSA and into when the Hawkman series kicked in, especially with Gray and Palmiotti's stuff as well. After Johns and Robinson's kicked off that series, Gray and Palmiotti did something so wonderful with that character that I started seeking out back issues and things with that particular character. Well, it's really, though, my main character is Batman. I mean, so at the end of 2007, with that crossover with Ra's al Ghul and, the Morrison book, actually before that the story where the island where they had all the different, the Mystery Society, I'm forgetting the name of what it was called right now, but it was those group of mystery men that Bruce used to go and it was a club that Bruce used to go and hang out with, and he brought Tim to meet them, and I liked that story a great deal. That was like a nice little lead into the events then of Ra's al Ghul, where I felt like the Bat books, with it crossing over, started to kick it up a notch again. Like that universe started to feel a little bit more cohesive, and I'm a big fan of that. Gotham Underground seems to be kind of an explanation of what the world of Batman looks like right now, focusing a lot on the villains as well as the heroes. and I'm glad that it seems to be pulling in a little bit of everybody and showing how they interrelate. I'm excited for Batman this year. This is just a great year for Batman and the Bat family as a whole.
Yeah, this is a good time to be a Bat fan, especially like, we see the Nightwing tie-ins, with Robin joining him on his most recent issues. Robin's starting to, we're going to have a Robin Nightwing kind of tie-in crossover. Not really crossover, but we're seeing Robin appear in the Nightwing books. So I like that. And they even mentioned when Nightwing borrows the Bat jet, he's like, oh, this is a new jet. He's like, yeah, Batman and I went to the island, and the other one got blown up. So you're like, oh, okay. So it's a nice little cross-reference to that story arc. So I was like, I like saying that. This is a cohesive unit and a one universe. That's cool.
But I like what you said. It's a good point. It wasn't a crossover in the sense, but the crossed over in the sense that it actually the writer did their homework, realized, it's Peter Tomasi, did his homework, recognized the fact that, these things are going on in Robin's book and Bruce's book and things, and little nods to the fact that Robin was in Titans. There's been nods to that in that particular series. I like they're little short little tidbits. You don't need to do them, but when you do them, it a fan who's reading all these other books geeks out just a little bit more. And I do. And I think he's completely nailing Nightwing right now. That's become a top of the stack series. Where I'm grabbing Nightwing right when that book gets into my stack.
And I want to keep talking, but right now I have to get off the phone for a little bit.
Oh, that's all right.
So,
hey,
I'm throwing off here.
You feel better, pal.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye. Take it easy.
You too.
Bye.
Holy caffeine!
Jim, our next segment's your baby.
Well, our next issue is going to be Countdown to Final Crisis number 16.
And Jim, before you do that, I actually should say we're going to be covering in this segment Countdown 16, 15, and 14. Because I don't think I said that at the beginning of the show, but we're going to be covering those 3 issues as we continue our countdown catch-up. I apologize.
Okay. No problem. Well, let me start that again, then. We're going to be Countdown to Final Crisis number 16. The writer is Paul Dini with Tony Bedard, with story consultant Keith Giffen. Art by Pete Woods, Tom Derenick, and Wayne Faucher. Colors by Tom Chu. Letterer is Swans. Cover by Pete Woods and Brad Anderson. Assistant editor Elizabeth Garland, and editor Mike Carlin.
You know what? I don't know that letterer. Swans?
Well, yeah, I did some checking on it, and I guess it's Steve Wands.
Okay.
And he goes by Swans. I think, because I pulled up the comic book database and I ran Swans because I wanted to make sure
Very cool.
I had that right. So, yeah.
I mean, it's a new name. Just kind of a note. That's cool.
And, he actually did issue number 30 of Countdown.
Really?
And he's done a lot of stuff, a lot of lettering stuff.
Okay.
I don't know if he did it as Steve Wands or as Swans.
It's just interesting. I like to, when there's new people, I like to note them, get to know where I've seen their work before. So you said issue 30 as well, huh?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. This is great because we're in that whole Monarch bit, Jim, and the cover over there. I so wanted to see this Monarch thing finally start kicking off. And the way this issue is with Monarch standing on that platform and just kind of looking out over the crowd with his hand hanging out there like, I am your ruler. He is a bad villain. I really like him.
And he's one bad Mama Jamba. Yeah, you got to like that.
The issue opens up with the Earth 51 monitor, and you were just about to say something about basically some of his inner dialogue.
Yeah, we get some really cool stuff that he's going through, and he's saying how, if ignorance is bliss, then mine was the most ignorant of worlds. Decades of peace and tranquility left it ill-trained for the arrival of the unspeakable. Heroes who long ago vanquished all evil now find themselves outmatched by strange invaders from beyond. And all the while, the masses make merry, failing to recognize the signs until paradise is already lost.
Yeah, Jim, he even comments that he failed to recognize the signs as well. Not only did the heroes, he did. Because you can tell his affection for this world, which I don't know with the weird personalities of all these monitors, if they all feel that way. You probably have sort of a symbiotic relationship. Actually, we know that because that's where the individualization's coming from. Because of their connection to their worlds, the monitors now, we're seeing them become more connected. And he has this great love for this wonderful, and who wouldn't be? How proud would you be to have the world where there's peace?
And I tell you, as this is going, as this inner dialogue, we see, this Earth, the Perfect Earth and Wonder Woman getting taken out by Superwoman, and you also see like a Dr. Fate gets taken out by someone I'm not exactly sure who it is, and you see like the city's getting destroyed. So you have this Monitor who is this all-powerful, all-knowing, all-seeing, or whatever he is, see his world just get vanquished in front of him, and he knows that there was nothing he could, there's maybe something he could have done to prevent it, but he didn't see the signs. He didn't see that one little warning saying, hey, watch your back, it's coming. Get ready, ready up your heroes, do something about it. And that's what's killing this guy, because he is a watcher, a monitor, but right now he has to see some horrific stuff going on, and there's nothing he can do about it.
And taking it even one step further with that, Jim, not only are they fighting the heroes of this world, they're fighting the monitors as well. So it's not only is Monarch's army making short work of the heroes, who are putting up a valiant fight, but they're also, racking their way through these monitors. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because you're seeing all these monitors throwing down with Monarch's army, and you get some really nice, like a 2-page battle spread, which shows multiple heroes and monitors fighting. And yes, I did see the Hawkman and Hawkwoman fighting. I didn't notice them.
And they look really cool for bad, evil ones.
Yeah, they're evil, but they still look cool because they are a hawk.
Well, and then questionably, too, how many of these people are actually evil and how many of them are working with Monarch because of the intimidation factor and the fact that they know if they don't work with him that he will destroy everything they know. So, I mean, it's funny. Monarch we've seen, from Countdown Arena and things like that Monarch is this manipulative individual as well, where he's, it's kind of like either you work with this dictator or he will destroy everything and he showed them that he would do this by doing it to other people. So I don't know that they're necessarily bad guys, but I really like them.
Well, I can't, I'll say they are bad guys just because they are helping him, even though I understand why they're doing it. And if I was in the circumstances, I would probably, I honestly, if I had the choice of protecting this Earth or destroying another Earth, I probably would. But you got to think long term when you're dealing with someone like Monarch and know that your Earth is going to be destroyed anyways if he doesn't pick your Earth as his one Earth in the universe. So I don't know.
I guess in defense of the heroes on this one, though, seeing what they've already seen, I agree with you. What you're saying long term, I would almost, if I was going to do it, though, I would bide my time and plan and look for an opportunity, which is hard to do for this guy because he's expecting that.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that's really cool about him is that he's not just a super powerful villain. He is a super powerful villain who's also he's a smart guy. He knows, how the heroes think, what they're going to do, how they're planning, and he can anticipate it and plan for that contingency. And I like that about him. And we always say that you need a strong villain to make your hero seem even stronger. So you got this guy who's dang near omnipotent that, you're like, how the heck are they going to stop him? Because backing him, he has this huge, powerful army as well. So it just makes you go, whoa, what's going to happen next? And I like that about this stuff.
And the other thing is, though, you got to say to yourself, what's this all? Obviously, he's got his own agenda, but we've already been seeing the seeds that there's other players behind the scenes who are playing this game. And what is the game? What are they playing for? Control of the multiverse, or is it something more? Who knows? It's an interesting development here.
Yeah.
And I like my hope with Monarch on this. Obviously, spinning out of this, there's going to be some resolution to all of this at some point, and we might see him some more in Final Crisis. I don't know. His story might be done within the pages of Countdown as well. I don't know how that's going to work out. He's a character, though, that I don't want to see done when Final Crisis is done. I would like to see him be a character they can pull out every so often and use for storytelling because he's a good villain. He's really, really a good villain. And I would like to see him utilized further.
And I don't think to be honest, he's one of those villains I don't think we'll ever see the complete end of him. I mean, you think about the Monitors. Everyone thought the Monitors were done. No, the Monitors are back. I think Monarch is going to be a villain like that where even if they finish him off in Countdown or Final Crisis, he'll make an appearance again later on just because he's that powerful.
You know what I'm curious of, and I'd love to see people who listen to this episode, he was Captain Atom. So I guess, a lot of times people get very passionate, and I haven't heard a lot of this. I haven't heard a lot of people saying, geez, I wish they hadn't done this with Captain Atom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You usually see that rallying, like when Kyle, for example, was turned into Parallax in Sinestro Corps. There was an intense amount of emotion on that whole thing, where people were really angry that was being done to him. And I understand that. I get it. That's your guy, and, you're mad about it. I haven't seen a lot of outpouring for Captain Atom. I like Captain Atom. I think he's a great character. I like this transition into Monarch, though, as well. I think it's really good storytelling with him. And I'm not necessarily screaming for him to be redeemed, which is interesting because I am usually one of those people that even if it's a hero that I don't rally behind, I enjoy this kind of twist, but I'm usually longing for them to make a redemption of some sort. I'm not looking for it here because I like the thinking man's villain that has been created here. This really works for me.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm asking for is I'd love from our listeners inside the forum thread for episode 62, give us your thoughts on this Captain Atom turn. Are you liking it? Do you want to see him redeemed? Do you wish it never happened? Especially if you're a Captain Atom fan. Obviously, I'm probably not as much of a Captain Atom fan as some people are, but if he's a character, you read his series when it was out, you enjoyed him in the Justice League incarnations that he's been in. If he's a character that you kind of are really attached to, how do you feel about this? Is it something you like? Is it something you don't like? Do you want to see him redeemed? I'm just kind of curious because I love seeing that fan connection with a character, and I like Monarch a great deal. So this is it's an interesting. I didn't expect this to go here.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
As we see in the issue, Monarch's army just completely ravaging this world. We see poor little Midge as he's he's not the man he used to be. He's wandering around basically aimlessly in disbelief. He can't believe that, one, he was wrong about, this whole scenario. He was wrong about the fact that he can't merge with the other monitors. And throughout all this, he says something kind of interesting. He goes, I was the one. I was certain of it. He said. Who is that he is he referring to? First thought that popped in my head, of course, is Darkseid. But then it could have been the second shooter who said told him that. I don't know.
Do you realize that Midge and Bob merging together would have been Mob? They always put couples together and they blend their name together. Midge and Bob together would have been Mob. So should we call him Mob now?
No, he didn't merge with Bob.
He didn't merge with Bob?
I know that destroyed Bob.
I guess I wasn't quite clear on that. Did he get any of Bob's powers, though? I thought he gained something from that transaction, but not what he expected.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. I thought he just drained the energy, but not his life essence.
So I can hope all I want to. We really have no right to call him Mob.
Right. I think he's still Midge, but we can call him Solomon if you want. We want to start calling him.
No, that's a silly name. Let's call him Midge.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's more normal. As Midge is wallowing in misery, Monarch is just there to rub salt into the wound. And once again, we get some really cool villain rants from Monarch. He starts off by thanking, Midge, because it was his greed for power that led to the downfall, not only his people, but now all of the multiverse. Hey, thanks a lot, buddy. Your power lust, just allowed me to win. Ha ha. And, I dig that. It's normally... You get a lot of the James Bond villain rants we hate. Well, this isn't a James Bond villain rant. This is just a, screw you, buddy. I won. I'm not only more powerful than you, I outthought you. I played you, and it was beautiful. I like that. Kind of like the little dig into an already broken man. Kick him while he's down. Good villain stuff.
It's also, you got to remember, too, you got to look at the military mind of Monarch. It's psychological warfare. A good general knows when to use psychological warfare to his advantage. A lot of times, certain attacks are meant for the purpose of not necessarily being the big bang or not necessarily being, the most destruction. They're meant to decrease morality. Monarch took that opportunity to break down that morality of probably the bigger threat. Obviously, they're wiping the floor with Earth 51 because these heroes, while they're valiant, while they're standing up, and I'm sure that they're a tough fight, they've also, they aren't at the top of their game. We saw with Zatanna and with characters like that, they put on a little bit of weight because they've been enjoying the good life. And that's a good thing. It's a peaceful world and all that. But it also made them easier to run over. But you take a look at the monitors right now, and they probably, even though they aren't the best combatants, they are probably the bigger threat because they have those powers. We've seen what they've done with the Challenger, how basically Kyle, his power, which, we're talking about one of the most powerful weapons in the universe, the Green Lantern ring, was pretty useless. So Monarch has an opportunity right now to get inside Midge's head and really kind of dig in deep and break down his psyche a little bit more, which is perfect because it keeps them from being organized. Let's keep these powerful elements from getting organized. I think it's just a brilliant brilliant war strategy. That's what makes this villain that much better, because it's more than just plain evil, like you're saying. It is a general who's getting in there and fighting, and I love this. This is really great.
The other thing I liked about that whole scene, you see Monarch not in any type of defensive stance when he's standing next to Midge. He's kind of like crouched over, like you would talk to a little child, and he's completely let his guard down because he knows Midge is not a threat to him, and you can almost kind of see the smile on his face through the mask, even just the way that one scene where he just hunkered over him, and you just kind of got that grin there. I thought that was a really cool looking, scene.
Not just like you would talk to a child, because I agree with that. As a teacher, when I talk to the kids in my room, I do get down like that, but also like somebody who you feel is insignificant in this case. In this case, he got down because he doesn't believe, like he put, with the arms behind his back, the posturing. I agree with you. I think the artwork on this just totally conveyed a scene that I needed to see here, and I really, really liked that. And it's Pete Woods, Tom Derenick, and Wayne Faucher. Kudos on the art, because it's just really good for this particular sequence. I really enjoyed the visual look of how this flowed.
And finally, Midge, though, he's had enough of the psychological warfare, the berating, and just teleports out and it's even not just teleporting out, it's teleporting in an angry, childlike rant. He just wants to get away from, Monarch, but it's even his nexus is no longer a sanctuary for him because there's still monitors there. And once he gets there, then they start berating on it. So you have the Monarch, ripping on you, just, hitting you. Then you show up to where you think you'll be safe away from it, and sure enough, there are the other monitors. They also get some really nice digs into him. They talk about how, he should go back to the war that he wanted so much, or have you lost your taste for conflict now that you can't profit from it? Nice little just stab in the back, kind of just you messed those up. You're the cause of the death of all the monitors. It's all on you. I like that, seeing that, just that anger and just that rage they have at him.
I agree with that to a certain extent, but I also think that they're whiny little so-and-sos. Because of the fact that none of them were stepping up during this whole thing. They let this guy manipulate them. They should be blaming themselves just as much. Because not one of them was willing to step up and take a unique... For as much as they were individuals, they all universally stood basically with him and let this happen.
Here's the one thing, though, that normally I would agree with you and I would say, wah, suck it up, dude, you messed up. But the one thing that did give me is when they accuse him of preying on his own kind and taking advantage of them when they were still confused by their growing individuality. The whole becoming individuals was an unusual and a confusing state for them. They couldn't really completely grasp this handling of the individuality that they were experiencing. And Midge was the first one really to embrace it and step up. So you look to a leader and you see someone, he's strong, he'll help me out, he'll guide me through this confusion. And that's how they saw Midge. So that was that's why they see it as such a complete total betrayal of this leader who was going to lead them out of the darkness to the promised land. Oh, wait, he wasn't leading us out of darkness. He was going to take all our powers away from us and merge into one being. So basically, he was just setting us up to use us.
Well, but they also are at fault because of the fact when that whole Bob sequence happened, where it looked like Bob was a good guy, quote unquote, they let that happen as well, though, because they all sided with him and ostracized this guy. Not one of them said, well, wait a minute, how is this helping? How is him going around and doing all this actually helping us? We got you on one side killing people across the multiverse, which is causing a bigger... I don't know. The monitors in general, they're a wishy-washy bunch to me. No, because they've got this little code of theirs, which really irritates me to no end, that, we shouldn't disrupt these universes and we should protect them. But then they're killing people in all these universes for crossing over, and then they kill people within the universe to prevent people from crossing over. They have done more universal harm to continuity than anybody else could. How many people did they kill that should have, throughout their own world's history, maybe given birth to great leaders? Kind of continued bloodlines that needed to continue in their own particular universe. So I don't know. I'm just at my respect level for these guys. I personally think the monitors got what was coming to them.
I don't know. I kind of see them like I kind of see some of them as like a Kirk. You know, they have the prime directive, but they're going to throw it out the window every so often. And you know, sometimes, hey, maybe you know when you throw it out the wrong time, it's a good thing. Maybe it kind of messes things up down the road.
Tell that to the monitor of Earth 51.
Yeah. well. Here's the interesting thing, because you know after you know we see them just berating Midge, and the other monitors finally leave him alone to join the fight on 51. We then see the monitor for Earth 51 as he's watching his Earth gets destroyed, and it's kind of neat because you see the one tear just running down his face. He mentions how he hid Ray in the hope of that he would prevent the disaster. So to me, does that you know, because that sounded like to me he knew the importance of Ray Palmer to this whole great disaster thing.
Yeah, and it was interesting. He is the one who, in my eyes, is kind of a hero in this whole thing, because he had this wonderful Earth and recognized its importance and was in his own way kind of thinking outside the box. Because even when he's the one that ran into Bob and had that battle with Bob. Even then, he was trying to find a way to bring Bob back into the fold, which I really liked.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing. It's wondering, if he knew the importance of Ray, why didn't he help Bob when it looked like Bob was a good guy? Because in the beginning, it looked like solely like Bob wanted to find Ray Palmer to help Ray Palmer with the cure. So if 51 Monitor knew that Ray was necessary for this cure to prevent the great disaster, why didn't he help out Bob? Or did he know that Bob...
No, here's why. Because he didn't want them. He's answering it right here. I kept Ray Palmer's presence a secret, hoping he could avert disaster. He didn't want Bob to find him.
But when it looked like...
But that's just, he wanted Ray's presence kept secret because he knew what Ray was doing and wanted Ray to continue that. So in his case, and it actually adds his whole segment right here actually adds a whole lot of weight to that. He didn't want Bob to find Ray because he was keeping Ray's secret so that Ray could avert the disaster. In his case, he probably felt them coming because he was on the inside track with Solomon, Midge. You know, and he knew that Midge was hunting them down. He knew, that basically the best thing he could do is keep it secret. Nobody needs to know where he's at. Done deal. And, I mean, you even look here, as, he says, all that remains for me to do is to join my brethren in battle. But should their actions jeopardize what's mine, then I'm prepared to negate them all. He was really, had his own focus on, what he thought was the right thing to do. I'm not saying he made the right choice, Jim.
Right.
I'm just sitting there saying that in this case, I think this guy was looking at, I've got the perfect world. Ray Palmer's here. He's trying to avert this disaster. You guys need to just stay out of the way. Everything's under control. He wasn't saying that to Bob because he didn't want to let Bob know where Ray was because he didn't want Bob to find him. But in his mind, that's what he was thinking. Bob, come back to us right now. Let's end all this silliness. And in his mind, he felt that he had everything under control. I mean, you might be reading it differently than I am. In my mind, that's what I'm getting out of this whole thing, though, is that this guy thought, I got Ray Palmer here. We can divert the disaster. You guys just need to stay out of my way. And he wasn't saying that to them, but that was internally what he was saying.
And it's, when I'm reading it, I'm really not reading it differently than you. I'm looking at it as if I am 51 Monitor's buddy, telling him, dude, you should have, why didn't you include, Bob? Because at first it looked like Bob was on the good guy's side. So why wouldn't you? But maybe, 51 knew the truth about Bob. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. It's the one thing I definitely am getting from 51 is because we mentioned even before, just this emotional response. He even talks about he will negate his brothers, to protect his Earth.
Right.
The thing that, really struck a chord with me on that is we have these super powerful beings who now just are getting a taste of emotions. Because before, they really didn't have emotional responses. Now they're getting this. So it's kind of like, take your middle school kids and give them superhuman powers. Raging hormones, just raging unpredictable nature, and you give them the superpowers. That, to me, is what the Monitors are. And that's why they were able to be manipulated so well by the Monarch. They had this power, but they really didn't have the social skills or just inner development that a regular person has or a hero has. And I thought that, you can really see that in him where he's trying to do something. And I like that.
Because they were very robotic. And I guess you adds more weight to what you were saying earlier about the fact that these guys were kind of childlike in their development on where they were at. They weren't ready to have that. You're right. It makes a good point.
I have him every once in a while. And as we continue on with the battle, we see Monarch surveying from his war room. And you know what? I like this. I like just the way it looked. It was cool how like the displays in his war room were actually images from that two-page spread in the beginning of the issue. It was nice that they took the art and they put it right in there. So you're seeing what we saw before is what the Monarch is looking at now. I like that. It was a nice little touch they did. The conventional armies have started fighting back, and it's good to see that they mention that this planet not only has its heroes, but it has its own country. They're going to throw down. They're going to do the best they can. Now, granted, Monarch is really not that concerned with them, but I was kind of surprised to see. Oh.
Not only is he not concerned with them, he's also not concerned with his own armies. He considers them all expendable because he even comments, I don't care, any of my recruits who die today aren't worth remembering. And he's just kind of like, this is all for my purposes, and, the ones that rally and support and show their worth are staying with me. If not, the other ones that fall on the battlefield, I'm not going to remember. I've got backups for them. So it really shows just where his mind is at and how he views his own army.
Also, come on, you got to love that, just that little comment where Monarch's sitting there and he's got I need the monitors. How many do we have in play? And he's keeping track of the most powerful players. So one, that's cool, the military mindset. But two, you digged at how he's surprised, one, that they're formidable foes. And then even adds one more little dig, except for the one he reduced to tears. You gotta love that. I was like, nice. Even though he's not there to wallow in the misery, let's add another little to the guy.
But like any good general, like you said, head count of the monitors. Where are they at? We're gonna make sure, because you don't want to leave one or two of them hanging around or anything like that. You want to make sure you get all of your foe on the battlefield. Or if they do escape, that you're aware of how many have escaped, that they're going to possibly regroup. What does that look like for a future battle? Because you can't think just about the current battle as a good strategist. You've got to think beyond that. I'm fighting a war here, not an isolated battle. I liked it. I really liked the character a lot.
Next, we head over to Gotham, and we finally find out what happened to Bruce Wayne. I'm glad, they did this little, bit in the Bat Bunker with him showing he's got and he's trying to reposition Brother Eye and then cloak it, but it gets taken out by Superwoman. And Bruce is a little he starts looking at the situation. He is still Bruce, even though he's obviously a different Bruce Wayne than we're used to. But you see him just saying, I warned them not to go soft. If you let your guard down once, the loss can be intolerable. And as he's saying this, right in the background, you see the Red Robin costume. Nice setup for what's coming. I was like, oh, that's cool.
But the Red Robin costume in the case.
Yes, in the memorial.
Showing, the memorial case and all that. I really like that. One of the things I really like, this is the dark, brooding Batman again. The one that we saw before 52 in the DC universe. So we're seeing this character back again. I want to see more stories of the multiverse. Like, after this Final Crisis is done and all that, I would love to see Elseworlds come back again and like, this is a great world that I would love to see some more stories, set in this. Do a mini series about this Batman. I would love to read about this Batman. See the twists.
Definitely.
See the twists and turns. Marvel's done the tremendous what if line, where throughout the years Marvel's had different what if one shots and things like that. Elseworlds was like that. Divergent paths. What if this person became Batman, or what if Batman became Batman this way, or what if Superman was in Russia, for example, things like that with Red Sun. And they're interesting stories. What if Batman found the Green Lantern ring? They're interesting stories. They're interesting worlds to explore. I would love to see more of that. JSA Liberty Files is a great example of another story that, I want to see more of these worlds.
Oh, definitely, dude. Next, we head back over to Kyle and Ray, and they actually land, and they're trying to, regroup. And Kyle's talking to Ray, "Hey, what is going on? Why are you so important?" And just as Ray, it looks like he's about to start filling in Kyle on, what it was. He says how it was Earth 51 that could prevent the great disaster. We see an evil Booster Gold, the Power Ring, and an Ultra Girl show up, and you're just like, oh man, just as we're about to find out what exactly is going on, oh no, okay.
And interesting, just characters, because they're all from different universes. To see them all banded together like this is interesting.
Next we head over to Donna and Jason, because the challengers split up, and Donna, on one hand I was like, I understood why she did this. On the other hand, I'm like, what's going on? Because Donna drops Jason off on the top of the building, basically telling him, stay out of line of fire. He doesn't have any powers, and she thinks this is something that's just way out of his league. Now, yeah, I do understand why she's doing this, but I do kind of disagree, because Jason is the kind of guy you want in this type of fight. He's not going to go charging, up front, da-da-da, right into some superpowered being. He's going to let someone draw the fire, sneak, and do that sneak attack like he did. We saw him do it to Bob earlier, and we've seen him just periodically. He picks his time, he picks his strike, and he strikes to kill. So yes and no, understand and don't understand why.
I think the issue with him is his unpredictability. I think there are times where she relies on his unpredictability because she knows that it will benefit in a situation, but also in a battle, she knows he's willing to kill, which is not something that she stands for. So I think it's that conflict of interest, perhaps, in this case, in the sense doesn't trust him to handle things the way she would. I don't know. It's an interesting. I agree with you in the sense that in a battle where I'm going up against a version of me, I would like an edge.
Yeah.
And I know what you're saying in the sense that, okay, yeah, maybe Jason isn't going to do well one-on-one with this person, but in Donna's case, maybe she's considering his unpredictability a liability in this, where it can throw her off her game if she has to protect him and, divide her focus. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I see what she's doing.
Yeah,
I'm with you in that I can see the reason why she did it. But I'm also with you in the sense that I can see the other side of it where I'm like, well, I still probably would want him there. I'm with you. I would probably take the risk and keep Jason there, assuming that it's going to be more of my benefit to have that second player in the game.
Yeah. Now, their discussion basically is pretty much abruptly ended as we see another evil or another Wonder Girl show up and start attacking Donna as those two start throwing off. So Jason's like, oh, well, but he kind of has his own little problems because Gorgon from the Extremists shows up and, he starts attacking Jason. Now, I was kind of looking forward to seeing Jason throw down with this guy, and I'm like, oh, okay, this would be kind of neat. So I was a little bit, just kind of like, holy letdowns, Batman, because he just shoves him off the side of the building, and Jason, you see Jason fall off the side of the building. Granted, you knew it wasn't going to be the end of the fight, but I don't know. I don't know if I wanted a little bit more just because I really like seeing Jason throw down, or if it's just a petty little nothing.
Well, I kind of agree with you in a certain extent because we see Batman go to toe-to-toe a lot of times, combat-wise, with a lot of supernatural and superpowered heroes. And we see that kind of development. So I'm with you. I like seeing those fights because it's always impressive to me to see innovative ways that the non-powered Batman family finds to compensate for that lack of power when it comes to fighting superpowered villains. Mm-hmm. So I'm with you in the sense that I would have liked to have seen more than that. I think where it worked for me is where these moments led.
Right, exactly. It definitely had, there's payoff coming up in the fight, so that's why I'm like, I can't really complain and yell, oh my God, this is wrong, because you see why they did that, and it's a great moment coming up in a couple minutes or so.
Yeah,
but,
I wouldn't trade that moment for anything, but I'm with you in the sense when that first happened, I'm like, I kind of want to see a little bit more to Jason there. I think we would have if the events didn't lead to where it would have. Like if the battle had kept on going with Gorgon versus Jason, and we had to see the point where Jason actually had to throw down like that, we would have seen exactly what you're talking about. But because of what happens...
Right.
And we might as well just say it. I mean, he meets up with Batman.
Yeah, and it's kind of a neat thing because Gorgon throws Jason off the building, and Jason catches onto the side. He's never. It's that never say die attitude that is in the Bat family, and I like seeing that he's not just gonna fall to his death and quit. And even hanging there, he's hanging from a sign one-handed. He is hurt. You can kind of see it, the pain in his face. He's still planning. Okay, how am I gonna fight this guy like this now? And just as Gorgon's moving in for the kill, you kind of see a little. Surprise, as he does a little bit of villain type banter saying how, what's your superpower too stupid to give up? But that grimace as he's attacked from behind, you see Gorgon just fall off the building. And off camera, you see, don't worry, kid, just take my hand. Jason?
But I liked actually, even the banner you're talking about too, where Jason laughs back and goes, maybe it is.
Yeah.
The typical, the cocky, we're in that moment where, and that is the way, I think the Batman family, one of the good things about characters like Jason Todd and Tim Drake and Dick Grayson used humor a lot of times to, as a way of giving himself some confidence, as a way of diverting his attention away from the fear of the situation. Jason, the same thing here. I think it's, more of a confidence thing. Like, take my mind off of the situation, let me do some witty banter with this guy while I can, in my mind, regroup and come up with a plan as far as how to take advantage of this situation in some way so I win. And I geeked out totally at the moment because you see Bruce's puzzlement as to why is Jason Todd standing before me, which right away let us know that there's a reason why that case is inside his cave.
Yeah. And I like just the look of shock on his face. That shock and just, huh? I like that. It was a natural reaction, especially when we see in the next issue what happened to this Jason Todd, what happened to this Bruce Wayne. It's very fitting reaction, nice setup for some future stories coming up. I liked the Donna Troy Wonder Girl fight. I thought it was kind of funny. Just you have two people with the same powers just throwing down, but it was kind of like there was some funny banter moments going on between the two of them. You got the evil Wonder Girl saying how she's going to rip Donna's face off, and Donna just counters with self-loathing much. It was some neat stuff because you have equal powered, throwing down, and they're knocking each other into buildings and whatnot. It was some cool fight moments.
And, it was great because it was almost like she needed to justify that she was right. Imagine looking back at the image of yourself and more of a more inspiring version of yourself. Like, our Donna Troy she's an inspiring presence when you see her. Very beautiful girl, carries herself in a fashion that shows that she's a true hero. Like, you look at her and she looks like your ideal hero. Like when you see her fly into any sequence, there's no doubt in your mind she's wearing black right now, and she's a good guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's which not everyone can pull that look off and look like I'm going to trust this person. But it's her whole facial feature. It's one of the consistent things about people that draw her. They draw her as the girl next door, where you just kind of know like this is a good guy, even though she's wearing that dark costume and everything. And to see this girl like. It's very clear that this Wonder Girl is quite evil and hasn't really ever grown out of the Wonder Girl phase.
Yeah, and even throughout their fight, they go flying basically into one of the enemy ships, which explodes. And after it explodes, only the evil Wonder Girl comes out, and she's saying, she's complaining that, she must have run away. What spineless earth did she come from? There's not that level of maturity that is in our Donna Troy. This is still a Wonder Girl, while Donna Troy is Donna Troy. And I like the definite distinction between the two.
Especially it honors Donna Troy's history because she went through multiple years and in multiple different titles where it was a journey of discovery between who is Donna Troy. And, went from being Wonder Girl, who was, Wonder Woman's sidekick, to a very different journey in trying to find out who she is and how she fits into things. And it was one of those, turbulent ones where she finally found out who she thought she was, and then she became Troya. Then she finally found out who she thought she was, and she became just Donna Troy. And she was Wonder Woman for a while. Now she's Donna Troy again. And and the end result is that, she's definitely kind of carved out that she wants to be Donna Troy. This is who she is. This is who she wants to be known as. This is who she's most comfortable as. She knows that now. This girl hasn't gone through all that. And we all go through that journey in our life. It's, high school years, college years, sometimes well after that. We all reach that point where we kind of figure out who we are and our identities, and that solidifies. And it's interesting to see, that maturity. You're right, maturity. That's the best way to put it. Donna Troy has that maturity.
Yeah.
You don't always arrive there at the same time for each person, but it's definitely a sharp contrast here. Very cool storytelling.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat because we're seeing this. As this is going on, the fight's being watched by, once again, we got Queen Belthera back in the mix, and it's obviously that Wonder Girl is a minion or troops or underneath Queen Belthera. So once again, we got her back into the whole fold, and you like seeing just these characters from the past coming back into this. And, funny little line, she's sitting there as she's watching this, she's kind of like pleased with the vicious nature of Wonder Girl as well as Donna Troy. And she's hoping she'll petition Monarch so she can have a matching set. And the first thought that popped in my head is, like HeroClix?
Oh, jeez.
I have my matching. Here's my Donna Troy, here's my Wonder Girl. Huh?
But it is interesting in her point, though, that she sees the advantage of, hey, if I trained one and I broke one, I can do that with the other one. I know she couldn't break our Donna Troy.
Oh, no.
Because of the fact of what our Donna Troy has gone through. And that is the difference between these characters from different Earths. If they haven't had the identical experiences, those divergent timelines leak to a character who either could be very strong compared to someone from our Earth or very weak. JSA right now is having a wonderful storyline involving the Kingdom Come Superman, where we get to see him teamed up with our Superman. And even though they're the same guy, and both are clearly heroes, you see that the way they react and think about situations is very different because they're two very different Supermen. It's nice to see that carried over here. This is where the multiverse gets very interesting, to see different variations and different timelines of characters and how that either strengthens or weakens a character or just changes their own individual way of perception when it comes to any given situation. Very good stuff.
Yeah. The little bit ends with her, and it's kind of neat seeing just the Queen just open up the, she looks at Gotham and doesn't see any challenges or anything like that in the defense. She's like, okay, let's just release my minions. She just picked the city clean, and as she just unloads all these bug-type warriors out of the mothership, into the city, just knowing who's in that city and what city they're going after, I was giggling. I was like, oh, this is going to be good because you have this horde coming down on Gotham and you have a not completely stable Batman just waiting for them. So I was looking forward to, what was about to happen.
Yeah, because it was a really you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's why when we were talking about that fight where we wanted to see more of Jason Todd there, I'm like, I kind of want to see. I want to see where they're teasing this going more than I want to see that.
Yeah.
Let's see the regroup. I didn't expect this.
What
was coming afterwards? This
I know.
where Midge runs into our old buddy.
Yeah, I'll tell you, dude, talk about having a bad day, he's like, everyone's just, Monarch's played him, his people are blaming him for their death and destruction, and just as he's like, he can't get any worse, Superman Prime shows up, and oh God, poor guy, I just feel bad for him because wherever Prime goes, nothing good can follow, just because it's Prime, so I was just like, I kind of felt sorry for Mitch right then and there. I was like, poor guy. Now he's got to deal with him.
And just a clarification for anyone who doesn't understand, because at this point in time, background-wise of Superman Prime, the reason why he looks like, instead of Superboy, he looks like Superman, is because he's juiced up on power that he absorbed in the Sinestro Corps series. So that's why he's looking the way that he is. It isn't that he drastically aged or something like that, and it isn't an art inconsistency. There's actually a storytelling reason for why he looks the way that he does.
Yeah, and I like the explanation that how they weaved it into different issues and different stuff. So I like that. I like seeing him look physically different than Superboy. So, and granted, they had to do that because of everything, but I like the fact that they didn't just do it. They actually made an explanation that made sense.
Right. And it wasn't as lame as, he aged.
Right. So the person who's having a real good day, though, is Jimmy Olsen. He's back in his apartment. He has a nice-looking female alien walking around it nude. You gotta love it. You gotta say, good job, Olsen. You got things going for you now, man.
But buy her some socks.
You know what?
She's in a major need for a pedicure.
I can actually put up with those weird alien-looking feet, just because everything else looks, nice. And you gotta love how they have these female aliens who don't have a problem with nudity. It keeps the young hormonal-driven teenagers and dirty old men buying the comics. It works.
I'd still buy her some footies.
What?
I'd still buy her some footies.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe like, the little fuzzy slippers, fuzzy pink bunny slippers.
Some a little cute that'll fit the... No. Yeah. Well, that would fit the whole pink theme that she has going on anyway, though. It was interesting. It was really interesting to see. I was glad that she was drawn the way it was, because if you're trying to show that Jimmy's having a relationship with her, you want to see that there's that sexy attraction, even though she's an alien. And I totally bought into the whole thing. It's really cool.
The cool thing is, though, this scene does actually have a plot point as well. It's not just here's a gratuitous scene for you, perverts like Jim. There's an actual reason for this.
And there's actually a reason for her attraction to him, which
right.
I really, really like. She's an alien who's looking at him and going, you have got this special something about you that I'm recognizing that could benefit all of the new gods. I really liked this sequence, because you're right, it wasn't just surface level. There was more to it, and there's some depth there, and a reason why she's like all over him.
Yeah, because when they kissed, she actually saw and felt that Jimmy had the spirits of all the dead new gods in him. And even Jimmy's like, hey, does that mean I'm turning into a new god? And she's like, no, you're a soul catcher. And as soon as I said that, I was like, oh, outstanding. We have an explanation of who Jimmy Olsen is now. It is, but it's not even completely done, though. That's the thing I like. Later on, we learn there's even more to this than just that simple soul catcher thing. So
I like this. This closing sequence is great.
Oh,
Jim.
God, yeah. We're back in the back bunker, and Batman is questioning Jason. And it's kind of cool because, this Batman is the dark, brooding Batman we had before 52, but he's even a little bit more extreme than that guy was. He is what would have happened if Bruce Wayne had crossed the line, if Bruce Wayne had not kept to his code. And I like seeing that. We talk about how we want to see stories of this guy. This is definitely a Batman I want to see, because there have been so many people who've asked, how come Batman just doesn't go around killing these guys? How come, it would be a completely different Batman than the guy we have, and we're seeing that.
And it also goes back to the Batman that was originally created. The Batman was originally created carried around a gun. Have you read Batman Chronicles?
What now?
Have you read the Batman Chronicles, the original stuff?
No.
All right, you ought to pick those up, because you're going to see a Batman who carries a gun. In the Golden Age, Batman carried a gun.
Really?
Yes. So,
okay.
I mean, it's a very different... but this guy, I like the reasoning why this guy's the way he is, though. Not just Jason Todd's death, which obviously had a profound effect on him that says you always need to be diligent. You always need to be there. You can't let down your guard, otherwise we're going to lose those closest to us. That worked for me. But all the heroes have kind of retired. They've grown older. They've gone a little bit soft, and he knows that we can't rest on our laurels here. So you see that in his outfit, in that he's preparing himself for the fact that he may be the only person that could stand up to a threat. So he's dressed accordingly. And I like that. I like his whole bat outfit, how it's a little bit more armor-like. Mm-hmm. It looks really good, and it totally fits. I really enjoyed this particular... I'm with you. This guy I want to read more of.
Yeah, and, it's kind of neat, because as he's sitting there questioning Jason, and he's got Jason tied up, he's telling him basically how he eliminated their enemies. Joker, Luthor, Sinestro, Grundy, Grodd. And the peace that this Earth-51 has enjoyed is on the blood of the villains. And you think about just the power levels right there of those villains that they mention. That is just a wow moment, because we always say how Batman's about preparation, planning. With the correct plan and strategy, you can accomplish anything. You can take out any villain, and we're seeing that to the extreme. And I like that that he's doing this, and he's basically just saying this to Jason, not to brag, not to say, look how powerful I am. He's like, this is just a reminder of what he's capable of doing, and tells Jason how he made an ill-considered, he chose the most ill-considered disguise, into choosing to go with a Jason disguise because he doesn't, know that this is the real Jason Todd.
You know what I want to see? A multiverse classified or a multiverse anthology series. Similar to what they do with the space stuff where there's 2 stories going on and they go for a certain number of arcs. I'd like to see something where it's not so limited in the sense that it has to be the same stories going all the way through, but imagine being able to read, stories about Earth 51's Batman in the beginning story, then the background story, takes place in the Red Sun universe or something like that, where you can touch on characters, where obviously you're going to have a feature story with one of the Trinity, so that way you've got the draw, but then with a backup, that's why I'd kind of more like to see an anthology, because a lot of times the argument why we didn't see more Elseworlds with some of the smaller characters in DC is because they wouldn't sell as well. But if you did an anthology story, you can really go hog wild and do some interesting tales of characters from different universes that are a little bit smaller. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that actually, we both would buy it just because we like the anthologies. But I don't know if people like anthologies like we like them. That's the thing. I don't know.
I think the multiverse hook would be enough, though, to draw people in. I guess my biggest worry is if you do like a multiverse classified, then it's always going to have Superman and Batman or Wonder Woman in some capacity, or Green Lantern. I don't think we're ever going to see like a 5-issue Green Arrow multiverse story or a 5-issue Blue Beetle multiverse story. But if you had an anthology, you could have one as a backup, you could have one in the front. I guess that's why I'd kind of, from a very personal standpoint on where I think it would benefit the storytelling, they would go more places if it was an anthology than they would if it wasn't. Because then you always have the option to always have a Trinity member, or at least one of the bigger heroes in the DC Universe headlining, and then your backup story can be somebody who you want to play around with who maybe isn't that headliner. And I think you would turn people on to some of those stories because they would continue reading into that story where they might not have picked it up to begin with.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Use the big characters to draw people into that story and have a great story there. I'm not saying put like some wishy-washy story in the front, but I'm saying that have that backstory be somebody that you wouldn't, because that's the reason why they had backups in the original DC books, during the Silver Age and then straight on through in the 70s and all that, when they started putting, like, Elongated Man was a backup story. That stuff that was from Showcase Elongated Man, that was all backup material.
Yeah.
He didn't have his own book there. So, I mean, those are characters who would be fun to read a different version of the Elongated Man, for example, as a backup story. I mean, put them as backups in the regular books. I don't know. I want to read more of this kind of stuff with different characters. It's just a wish that I have. I don't know that we're going to see it. I don't think we will, but I think I think that would be a great concept. I think people want to see more Elseworlds. I really do.
I agree, dude. I completely agree. And yeah, I don't know if we ever will, to be honest with you. Looking at what's going on with the Final Crisis and with the countdown, I don't know if I want to see it. I would love to see them run an Elseworlds storyline and just start knocking off Elseworlds stories again. Those were always cool, but I don't know if we're going to see them, though. That's the only thing I can say. I don't think we will. I think they're going to concentrate just on the DCU and what's currently going on and not do the outside the stories.
I think that's a mistake. No, I'm not saying that they shouldn't. I'm going to correct that in one sense. I think the intense focus on the main universe and making those stories important and that ones people care about, that's why you and I are podcasting this stuff, because we're still enjoying it. I think if the universe dropped off and you and I weren't enjoying it as much, we'd stop doing this. We'd go talk about something else. Agreed?
Agreed. Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we keep doing this because we're genuinely having a lot of fun exploring the various avenues of this universe. I mean, you and I are pulling everything. I mean, if you're not pulling everything, you're close to pulling everything than I am.
Yeah, I'm close to it.
Yeah. There's very rarely that you and I have a conversation where you're not already reading something that I'm talking to you about. Well, I'm talking about off air, where I'm ranting about a book or something like that. It always shocks me. It shocks me more now when you're not reading something than when you are, because I just kind of assume you're reading the same stuff. But I guess I love that focus, and I'm with them on that, but I think the Elseworlds have been traditionally known as quality stories with quality creators who are telling stories that are memorable. And if you think about how much of a geek out it was to see the Red Rain Batman, to see the Gotham by Gaslight Batman, to see the Green Lantern Batman, to see the Red Sun Superman, to see, the various versions of Wonder Woman, to see some of these new characters, but I mean, to see characters coming back again, Kingdom Come was meant to be an Elseworlds storyline. Kingdom Come is one of those that still resonates with fans as one of the best stories. It's up there in that, in a lot of fans' top 10 lists of, just the great stories of all time. And I think it's no accident that people enjoy those stories because they're contained. The creator's usually unhampered by continuity. They can play with it to all levels and really tell that great story that they want to tell. So I want to see more multiverse. I want to see that. I don't care how they do it. My personal preference would be an anthology, because I think that would open up even more opportunities for creators to pitch stories about maybe some smaller characters that they would never be able to get published otherwise. So that's why I'm going that route. But if they went back to the Prestige, multi-part series like they were doing before with those Elseworld stuff, I loved those. Those were great. On the high-quality paper and those Prestige harder bound books, I would love to see those come back. I really, really would. I really enjoyed those, and those were ones I rushed to those when they came out. You want to talk about our backup?
Oh, dude, that backup was nice. It was the origin of Sinestro, and once again, it was cool that they took it through to the current events. You see through the Sinestro Core War and et cetera. I like that. It was funny, is after I made the comment a couple issues ago about how I don't know if I'm still liking these things, every time I'm like, oh, this looks neat. Oh, this is cool. And I'm like, damn it, I'm going to start contradicting what I said before.
Well, I think, and that's the great thing. These 2-page ones I think are going to resonate in different ways depending on which ones each person. I think they're doing the right thing with these, because I'm with you. I'm noticing this one too is one that just kind of resonates with me as cool because I'm very into the characters right now. And I think people are going to be into different characters than we are. So some of the 2-page one-shots that maybe you and I weren't as into, some of our other listeners are probably really enjoying because they're characters that they're intrigued by. This one, one thing I've really noticed, and you talk about this a lot when you talk about the Green Lantern stuff, there are certain colors that they're putting with this Green Lantern stuff. Hi-Fi on this one, these are just, it's really well colored. And I think it's important with the Green Lantern universe that the way, I know you can argue that they're simple colors, but there are tones in these yellows and greens in this particular sequence that really just stand out and make these characters look like something otherworldly.
Yeah, there's like a pop to it, and you need that, with the Green Lantern universe. And you need it in other comics, but for some reason, I like seeing whenever Green Lantern or any of the Lanterns, or whether it's his title, core, in Brave and the Bold, we saw this. It's just, you got to have that bam, just because the colors are so important, especially now that we're getting into the Rainbow Lantern Leagues and stuff like that. I'm looking forward to seeing the different colors have the different tones and shading to them like that. So it's going to be kind of neat stuff.
You know what it is for me? The colors that they're using on this say emotion, they say power. You go on the whole willpower and emotion thing that goes on with the various, what the various different rings have their own different emotional connection. There's something about the way they're coloring them right now that's really just kind of jumping out at me and giving me that feeling that I need to feel. The artwork is beautiful. The penciling is beautiful in that particular sequence. It's the colors combined with that too, though, that are really just kind of setting it out and making it something special. So it's like I would not want to see that sequence in black and white. No. And that's no insult to the artist. The artist is penciling it with the intention that it's going to be colored. So it's meant to be that symbiotic relationship between all that. I take that back. I would love to see the pencils on that because the pencils look great, I'm sure. But I like the finish sequence so much because of the great colors. I would like to see the pencil work, though, because I love pencil work. So I will take that back. You want to go on to 15?
Let's go on to 15. The next issue is Countdown Final Crisis number 15. The writer is Paul Dini with Tony Bedard. Story consultant Keith Giffen. Art by Pete Woods, Tom Derenick, and Wayne Faucher. Colors by Pete Fantazis. Letterer Ken Lopez. Cover by Pete Woods and Brian Anderson. Assistant editor
Brad Anderson.
What did I say?
Brian Anderson. Cover by Pete Woods with Brad Anderson.
And the funny thing is, in my notes, I do have Brad written down. Assistant editor Elizabeth Garland and editor Mike Carlin. The issue opens up with Themyscira.
Wait, look at the cover. Okay. I love the cover. This is no insult to the cover. I think it's a beautiful cover. But I guess I was kind of looking at that, I'm like, what do you mean the war's over? I mean, do you know what I mean? I don't know if you got that feeling when you picked up 15. With everything that was going on in issue 16, I guess the cover kind of threw me off. It's a great cover. I love it. I'm not knocking the cover. I like the design of it. I like the Superman Prime Kate being up there. I was like, what is that doing up there at the top of this one? I guess I was looking right away that the war was over. But the question mark was really important for me there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I looked back and looked at it again, I'm like, okay, no, this is kind of meant to throw you off a little bit.
Yeah, I was kind of seeing it as a teaser for what's about to happen in the war. So I liked it. I don't know, I liked it.
Oh, I'm not knocking the cover. I liked the cover a lot. I was wondering, I'm like, it seems kind of fast to me.
Well, when you're dealing with superpowered people, wars don't last 20 years. Right. It's over pretty quick.
Well, and it isn't as simple as that, though, because it didn't really end in this issue, so to speak, because there was more going on after this.
Yeah, it was the beginning of the end.
Right.
Okay, the issue opens up with Themyscira. and we see Holly and Harley bring Mary Marvel to Hippolyta. And I like the cool dialogue between Hippolyta and Mary Marvel. They do have, you think about it, they have some stuff in common with, connections to gods and powers and whatnot. So I liked the fact that there was some pretty good association between the two of them. Mary Marvel, Mary kind of gives Hippolyta kind of a rundown as to what she's done and where she's been. And we see, the regret and remorse from Mary, which is a cool thing, because you got to have this in this hero who did these horrific things, and she's got to feel bad about it. But the one point that she makes is not only did she have these amazing powers, but she had a family and a sense of belonging. And when it was lost, all of a sudden, she truly just, that's what, broke her down. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. It wasn't just losing the power. It was losing the family, losing the power, losing the feeling of belonging, and the purpose. I like that. It's good to see it. It's good to see her remorse, and now that she's really clear of any of the negative influence, we're seeing the real Mary Marvel there, and she's kind of dealing with it.
What actually worked for me, too, though, is this part where she says, I would have sold my soul to be a hero again, and I guess I did. I asked Black Adam for help, and he gave me his power, all of it. And it goes beyond, I think, there to me, the power itself corrupting her, as much as her reasons for taking the power. When you're granted power because of, the good person that you are and things like that, it's a lot different than selling your soul because you feel you're entitled, or you feel that that's the only way that you're going to be somebody important. There's that whole thing where the true hero is the person behind the cape. The true person is the person behind the mask. It's, the person without the powers. We see, how many times do you see Superman step up with Action Comics right now? You see Superman stepping up without his powers. Yeah. That, to me, is where I connect with Clark Kent the most, is when we see him step up knowing he could die, and yet he still is the same man that he is when he is kicking full power. That's the great part about this Mary journey, is we've gotten to see her choose to be the quality of character that she was before, to give up the powers. We saw right here, she's powerless right now because she wants to be who she was again. She wants to be that person who she believes in. She remembers who she is and what made her who she was, and that's why she gives up that power, because she had drifted so far off the path that she wanted. She allowed herself to be manipulated. She set herself up to be manipulated by accepting the powers for the wrong reasons. Not accepting them, seeking them out, because she sought those out and begged for them.
Yeah.
I like that.
Go on.
I like that Hippolyta noticed that she didn't have the power because of the fact that they're God-given. That would be something that she would be in tune with because of her relationship with the gods. That divine nature is gone, and that's what led to that whole conversation. It was cool.
And I also like that Hippolyta sensed the remorse in Mary. It wasn't just, Mary giving lip service to Hippolyta. Hippolyta could feel that remorse and feel that emotion, and, probably could tell just from the verbal communication and all that. So basically she can see that, okay, this is a good person. This is a person who feels bad about what they've done. They're looking for a second chance, and that's when she offers her basically a chance to join them in their fight against Granny and the others. So I like that, seeing that Hippolyta recognized that and saying, okay, you've done wrong. It's time to do right. It's time to step up. Here's your chance. And that was cool.
Well, and see, this is where it was important for me that she stepped up without powers and continued to work with them. She doesn't say at this point, I don't have any powers, I'm useless. She agrees to step up, and really, she could have died during this time. Yeah. It was important to me that it wasn't just, I've chosen to give up these powers, now I'm good again and all that other stuff. No, I kind of needed to see this sequence. So I'm glad that it's head down this path, because otherwise to me it would have been too quick. Mm-hmm. It would have been kind of like wham bam, giving up your powers and you're a good person again, yada yada yada. No, I need to see her kind of step up in another situation right now without thinking that she's going to get any benefit, because right now where she's standing in this particular situation, she's not feeling like she's going to get anything out of this other than just doing the right thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's no, like when she chased down Black Adam, she did it for the purpose of she wanted powers again.
Yeah, she wanted to get something out of it. Now she's doing the right thing because it is the right thing. And that's good. That's the true hero in her coming out. So you got to like seeing these people who have fallen come back. And it's the rally time, the return of the hero in them. I like that. Next we head back over to Earth 51, and we see Kyle and Rail Kyle and Ray dealing with Booster Gold, Supergirl, and the Power Ring. Here's the thing: when this sequence first started, I did get a little miffed at Ray, but it kind of fixed it later on. It was another thing where, like how we talked about with Jason Todd, fighting Gorgon. At first, when it first started, I'm like, what's going on here? And then, oh, okay, it's payoff for later. So I like that it shows the payoff development, especially even stuff later on that happens with Ray. Because as the attack comes in, Kyle covers Ray's escape, and Ray runs off. And here's where the initial miffing was. I see him just running once again. I'm like, dude, all your problems stem from running. Now you're running once again. And when he runs, he once again is, thinking about how his wife was murdered, how his wife murdered his best friend's wife, and how he locked her in a nut house, how he came to the peripheral earth. Now everyone's dead. And I'm like, dude, let it go, because, Kyle needs your help. Granted, he is throwing down some really cool fighting, and we're seeing some Kyle just opening up and kicking some serious blood as he's going up against three powerful villains, and he's taking them down with some nice, blasting here, doing this, throwing Supergirl into the one. I like that, and especially he took out Power Ring with probably one of the coolest trick shots, ever saw, because he fires into the ground, through the ground, and then bam, comes up the underside of Power Ring. I like seeing that type of power levels in a Green Lantern and in Kyle. It's a really cool moment.
And forget just the power levels, though. Taking it one step further, this is no longer a legacy hero. This is a guy who, through his own series and through the events in that, has basically gave birth again to the Green Lantern Corps. Kyle's a big name hero. He has earned his spot, and it shows his experience. He isn't just, he's thinking three-dimensional. You go back to, Wrath of Khan. Remember Wrath of Khan, where, Khan had the ship and he was chasing down the Enterprise? He could only think on a certain level because he didn't have the experience as a starship captain that Kirk did. That's where Kirk and Spock all of a sudden came up with that plan where they took the ship, instead of just going forwards and backwards, they started going up and down. And they came up from, I believe it was below the Reliant. And that was how they actually got behind Khan and were able to take advantage of Khan. Same thing here. You got Kyle, who understands how to use the ring. He's thinking a little outside the box, recognizing that we got a guy here who's got a ring, who knows how to use it as well. So I need to start using my experience and hopefully outwit him, because of the fact that I'm just a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I liked that. I like that confidence. I like that experience. I like how he utilized it in this sequence.
Oh, dude, yeah, that was a cool moment. And I like the fact that, just as Booster is basically about to attack Kyle from the behind, do a sneak attack, we see Ray then jumps into the fight and, clubs him from behind, like with a tree or tree branch or whatnot. So he didn't completely...
No, it was his hands. It was both his hands. Yeah, he put both of his fists together, and it looks like, I think he knocked him into...
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure on this. I don't know if it was both hands behind his neck that knocked him out, because he actually hit him in the back of the head, but he may have hit him into the he might have hit him into the tree. I can't really tell 100% on that, but there's definitely both hands behind the head is what did it. But I liked the inner thinking. Just like Kyle doesn't see Dark Booster there drawing a bead on him, guess I can't sit this out after all. So he was willing to do what he said, but like a true hero, he stuck there, he watched, observed, jumped in where necessary to make that work. I'm with you in that I was getting annoyed with him too when he ran away, and I was so glad to see the sequence didn't end that way.
Yeah, and even later issues, we start seeing him deal with this. We see him actually start confronting and facing what happened and his role in all of this. So I like that. And this is like the beginning of it. This is his beginning of his, retribution. We saw Mary Marvel with hers. Now we're seeing Ray with his. I like seeing that.
You got to remember, though, consider Ray Palmer's powers in that he would shrink. Ray, when he's in the battle with the Justice League, he is more of a stealth hero in the sense that he's got to pick his spot, use his size-changing and mass-changing powers when necessary to provide distractions, to provide that opening for the other heroes who maybe have a little bit more power than he does in a different way. Not saying that he's useless. I don't mean it that way. He has an incredible use in that if you're putting together a team, you want a guy like that, because that's the kind of guy in a battle that can tip the tide. We were talking about Jason Todd, Donna Troy before, how Donna should have brought Jason along, could have easily brought Ray Palmer along for the same reason we were addressing, in the sense that Ray Palmer can be that one who will step in out of nowhere, all of a sudden swing things in the other direction, so you now have an advantage, just like you did here with Kyle. That's, to me, a good use of the atom. That would be one of Ray's strengths on a team, would be, and in this case, he's not using his powers, he's just kind of whipping in on the scene, but I liked it. I really liked it for that purpose because it kind of fits, to me, what I would see out of Ray.
Right. This leads right back to Monarch, and he's back in his control room, and all the world governments have, basically been destroyed, and his people are ready, okay, time for us to claim victory. But, Monarch reminds him that, there's still the monitors fighting on, and even though they're all-knowing and they have this powerful, they still refuse to acknowledge the obvious, that nothing can stop Monarch. And it was funny, when I read that, the first thing that popped in my head, it was like thinking, you know what, Napoleon probably thought the same thing when he invaded Russia. And I do use the invasion of Russia, not the Waterloo reference that everybody knows about Napoleon, because when Napoleon hit Russia, attempted to attack Russia, he weakened his army such to a point that he had his inevitable loss in Waterloo. We're seeing that in the Monarch. He's done this big, huge battle up front, and yeah, he's hitting and pounding on it, but is he weakening his forces to the point that later on he won't be able to ultimately accomplish his goal? And that arrogance in him that I really like in him, I'm wondering if that's going to be his downfall.
Interesting point. And thinking that he's covered all bases.
Yeah, because that could be a weakness of Monarch, in that he knows he is this great mastermind, he is this great planner, and you miss one variable, and you have this intricate, possible, awesome plan, but if you miss one little detail, one little thing, it could bring you down. And it could be something as simple as just a wild card thrown in. And we, of course, have the biggest wild card in Countdown to Crisis with Superman Prime. As he's dealing right now with Midge, I kind of like this. I like this scene between the two of them, especially because
just before we, I know I'm glad we're going in this direction, but just one more thing, I have another thought on that whole Monarch thing, because he's looking at monitors, not just, and I mean actual computer monitors versus the monitors themselves. That's where he works for me, though, because we go back to that cockiness right there. Even though he feels that way, he's still observing anything. I think I would have a bigger issue with him right now if he turned those off and walk away. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I think where he really works, I think that's where, to me, yes, wild cards and all that can come in and get this guy, but I think where he works for me as a villain, what I really, really enjoy, or villain, or whatever you want to call him, he's kind of that bizarre gray area.
Oh, no, dude, he's...
I think at this point, I think because of the amount of killing he's done and things like that, you consider him a villain. I think where he's so totally... I think I'm still got Captain Atom on my brain with him. But I think where he totally works for me is that just because of what you're saying, he never stops looking at the battle, never stops trying to continue a new strategy, because he's trying to account for any possible wild cards that can creep up so he can take care of them. That, you're right, it totally leads into the Superman Prime segment, which I totally enjoy, but that is one of the things that I'm really liking about his character, is that he's totally cocky, totally conceited, but very believable because he doesn't quit with his observations.
It's a tough line with Monarch, because he has proven that he is a great tactician, and he is this great planner. He considers all little twists. But I don't know. It's weird, because one thing I always hate is I hate when a villain loses because they make a simple mistake, or they make a little error in their planning. I don't like those. I like it when they lose because the heroes, went above and beyond to win. But to be honest, with Monarch, if it wasn't something like basic or as simple, if it was just one little detail, one little factor that he didn't consider, I would actually be okay with it. If that makes any sense? Okay.
It does. It's funny, as you're talking about this, I'm just paging through and looking at the issue as well. One thing I've liked about these last couple issues, it actually goes true with issue 14 as well. It's the same art team, and I really, really am enjoying this art. I know I've said that a lot more as we've been doing these discussions, probably a lot more so than if you go back to our original discussions. And it isn't a knock on the art teams. I think what I'm noticing more right now is, 16, 15, 14, they all have the same art team, which means you've got a chance to really have the art team develop some consistency and some personality in their storytelling. Whereas I think if you're got one art team on one issue, then a different art team on the next issue, you never get that flow going, which I think is limiting for the art team, if that makes sense. I like this. I like this way of having multiple issues in a row with the same art team. I don't know how they worked it out so it's going to work this way, especially with it being a weekly book. But it's a nice flow having these same three. I don't know if they maybe switched between segments. Mm-hmm. One our team's on the
right.
Palmer Challengers segment.
That's what I think they did.
That's what they're doing.
That'd be my guess, that they pick, you do this, you do this, you do that. Yeah.
Because it does look like it's slightly, it's all got the like kind of countdown style to it, but you can definitely see the personal stamp on those, because definitely this Pete Woods stuff is definitely Ray Palmer stuff, without a doubt. And because I really like Pete Woods stuff, and that's definitely Pete Woods. But the art throughout these last two issues has been really, really great.
Oh yeah, dude. And I tell you, I like, one of the things I dig with when we got the Superman Prime with Midge, the facial expressions and just the way they drew Prime. It was kind of cool because he has Superman's face, but it's different. It's got that anger. It's got that rage. It's got that psycho-ness to him as he's ranting. And these are things that are just so foreign because you'd never see Superman doing this, but we're seeing it in Prime. So I liked wow, that is Superman, but yeah, he's a raging psycho. Wow, I like that. That was kind of a cool thing for me.
Again, it shows immaturity. The same immaturity you were talking about with Wonder Girl in in the fight with Donna Troy. You got that same immaturity here with Superman Prime fighting Midge.
It's funny because Prime is not only upset because Midge won't give up the location of his Earth, but because he won't fight back. He's like, "Come on, fight me back. What do you want me to kill you?" I like that. It was just he wants to win, but he doesn't just want to win. He wants to beat you up while he wins. He doesn't want a walkover. He wants a fight.
He wants validation.
Yeah.
It's not the fight that he wants, Jim. He wants validation, which is something he's been seeking since Infinite Crisis.
And he'll never get it. How this is. Well, you got a feeling how this is going to end.
He wants everybody saying that he is the true Superman.
Yeah, and
he wants everyone to bow down before him and say that he's a true Superman and just validate his own. He wants his perfect Earth, and for everyone to just acknowledge the fact that he's the true hero. Everybody else is wrong.
This little bit ends with, I thought was just a really cool moment, because Forerunner shows up and she's like, "Hear me, monitors. The time has come for." I knew it was a little bit too easy getting in here, just as she's confronted with Superman Prime and Midge right there. She's like, "Ah, dang." I like that entrance.
I want to shout out Countdown to Adventure, because that's one. Adam Beecham's doing the front story with our favorite heroes from 52. Adam Strange, Animal Man, and Starfire. I don't know how caught up you are on that particular miniseries, Jim, but I am loving that one because the backup story is by Justin Gray. It's a Forerunner story. And it tells, Forerunner's background leading up to when she met Monarch, and then her history leading up to today of how she became the person that's training Monarch's army. I really am enjoying that backup story just as much as I'm enjoying Countdown to Adventure. But that's another one we talk about. I reread that this past week just because I got caught up on the most recent issue, and I'm like, I want to go back and kind of re-enjoy this whole thing because I'm really liking the Adam Strange stuff. Because it goes back to the whole cosmic thing again, and we're watching the Rannians and all that. And I know it looks like from the way Starlin's talking, that is going to, events from that are going to be referenced in his miniseries. Not that you necessarily have to read it, I'm sure, to enjoy what Starlin's doing, because Starlin's got a great way of giving you everything that you want to know in his mini. But I don't know how you feel about Countdown to Adventure. I'm loving those characters as much in Countdown to Adventure as I loved them in 52.
Oh, dude, I couldn't agree with you more. That is a really awesome read, and I am enjoying it a lot. The continuation of the story of these characters, I wanted continuation from 52, and we're getting that, and I'm digging this.
And they're going to keep continuing into the Starman series because all three characters are featured in that series as well. So this is really great in that we're seeing the stuff that was going on with Mystery in Space. That is going to continue into this. So all these cosmic events are coming together in these minis that are going to continue on. So it is like a monthly book at this point with those. But the Forerunner backup story as well is something that I'm really enjoying as kind of a fun little story that tells her background. Don't need it here because you get enough from her in this particular book, but wow, she's an interesting character. So if you're liking Forerunner, because people a lot of times are saying, which tie-ins should I be reading? If you like Forerunner and you think this Monarch stuff with Forerunner is cool, I would pick up Countdown to Adventure if you're not already reading it, not just for the 52 heroes, but also for Forerunner, because I think it's a cool Forerunner story. And Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti are just, a lot of times I think they're underrated DC talent, because I love their Uncle Sam stuff. I loved their work on Hawkman. Jonah Hex is really, really great. These guys are just really batting a home run for me. It's Justin Gray on his own on this particular tale, and I think it's a good story. I think it's really a good story of Forerunner.
Here's the thing with them, that I don't know if we've given them enough, just props and credit in their writing, but the flow through with them, it's the segue from one page to another, from one event to another. We saw it when they did the countdown issues, that it had the nice tie-in from the one panel, from the one story arc to the next story arc to the next story arc. It's that same panel type of style and flow in their own, in the titles. And I noticed that with them, how it's just a whoosh, through the issue. It's a cool thing. I'm really digging these guys.
Yeah, I have not read something from Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti that I have not enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the nicest, most sincere compliment I can give any writer, is that I typically know when their name's on the cover of something, and now it goes solo, with Justin Gray batting really well for me with the Forerunner story. They're creators that when they write something, I traditionally enjoy it. Mm-hmm. We tend to geek out a lot about their countdown issues that they're on. Their flow through on their countdown issues is usually really well done as well, and that ties into their stuff outside of there. But that countdown to adventure, if you liked the 52 heroes, you're going to feel right at home with that story. Adam Beecham's really just nailing that one and making it feel like it's just a continuation of 52. Another writer who I just happen to really enjoy. You loved his Robin stuff. I loved his Robin stuff. Really enjoying him right now with the stuff he's doing at Countdown to Adventure. It was a good move putting him on that story. Yeah. Because he understands them.
Oh, definitely.
So, I'm sorry. Let's continue on back to Gotham.
Yeah, we're back in the Bat Bunker as Bruce continues to question Jason, and Jason basically lets him know who he is and how he's like the invaders. He's from another dimension, and you can start seeing that Bats believes him, and it makes sense to him because Bat ran the whole DNA sequencing and everything, and also it is Batman. He is a detective. He can tell when someone's giving him a line of bull. And it's obvious that Jason is who he says he is, and he starts, kind of filling him in on what happened on 51. And it appears that after Jason died, Bat went out and killed the Joker, and then he completely fortified the Bat Cave and turned it into the Bat Bunker. And he laid this thing out so that no one could get in. It was the paranoid Batman taken to the extreme with magic protections, lead lining, power ring protections. You name it, it's not getting in there, and they're locked in, tight.
This is therapy for Jason just as much as for Bruce.
Oh, yeah.
Because, while Bruce is sharing that size of thing, Jason's getting an opportunity to see. He always wondered why his Bruce didn't do this.
Yeah, and this is the cool thing where you're seeing why Bruce Wayne didn't do this. Because once you cross that line, you can't go back. Once you take a life, that's it. It's on. And especially for Batman, who was always the darker hero, once he starts going further, he continues. And even, this Batman continued on. After the other heroes hung up their tights, what's he do? He starts killing off the villains so they can't come back. And, there's this really cool display case behind him as he's talking to Jason where you see some serious equipment. You got Luthor's armor. You got Deathstroke's mask. There was Piper's flute in there. There was some boomerangs, from one of the Captain Boomerangs. And there was, even Dr. Freeze's armor in there.
Mr. Freeze.
Dr. Freeze, Mr. Freeze, Professor Freeze, whatever. It's the cold guy.
Giant Joker card, Brainiac's outfit. I mean, you can go at Black Manta's helmet. Yeah. He's got little who's who.
And these are all guys he took out and he killed. And you can also see, the weapon arsenal of the different guns and the different rifles and the various tools that he obviously used to take out the villains. You personalize your weapon for your enemy. I like that. It's the Psycho, but
weather wizard stuff.
Yeah,
Piper's pipe.
Yeah. So Bat, of course, being the strategist he is, he comes up with, and I'll tell you, it is a sound battle plan, and I like his plan. Basically, you hold off in the bunker until the first wave is done, and then you launch a covert counterstrike. These are guys without superpowers, so this type of attack would be a little bit more in their league. Jason's response was wonderful, and it's actually the first time through I didn't even really catch what he said. And then I'm like, wait, did he just say? Because he starts off, he's like, what are you, stoned? I've got my friends out there. You think I'm just going to sit on my thumbs while they fight and die? And it was cool because I was so caught up in the fact that he's standing toe-to-toe with the Batman, and he's, just standing up to him, and he's not being the junior sidekick. He is Jason Todd. I almost missed the fact that he called them his friends.
I think if you played it back to him, though, and this is where it works for me even more, I think if you played it back to him, he would be just as surprised he said it as you.
I know. That was a cool... We're talking about how Mary Marvel had her moment where, she's becoming a hero. We're talking about Ray Palmer. He's confronting his hero thing. Now we're seeing Jason Todd. We're seeing Jason Todd start to turn from... He's still got the darkness in him. He still, is Red Hood in a way, but... there is the beginning of it, that he's seen what happens when you go over the edge. He's seen that in this Batman, how this guy is living. Because he even asked, there was a part in this where he asked him about Alfred. Alfred's gone. And you can tell, that this Batman's a little bit wacko, and Jason doesn't want to be this guy. And that's when the Friends comes out. I like this. I was like... It was a really cool moment for me, especially because I am a Jason Todd fan. I like seeing this progression. We've seen it go through Countdown, but now we're seeing it's starting to turn the corner.
But I like that it's not 100%.
Right. Oh, no. He's still a little bit of Red Hood in him. He's still a little bit of the guy who's willing to take a life. A
lot bit. and the loner as well. But I like that this Batman has hit an emotional chord with him in the sense that he's seeing what he wanted from Batman, and I think he's connecting with this. Like, he cares about this guy. From that conversation, like, the typical Jason Todd, if he doesn't care about somebody, he's going to tell you he doesn't care and just walk away from you. In this case, he cares enough about this particular guy to stand toe-to-toe with him, tell him what's what, and what he believes in, and try to convince him to side with him.
Oh, yeah.
He wants and needs this guy's, I don't want to say approval, but this guy's friendship, this guy's...
Yeah.
He wants to go out with this guy and stand toe-to-toe with them.
Yeah, it was cool because, Batman's just calling him out on it and saying, what's one empty-handed tough guy going to do up against an army of trans-dimensional supermen? I'll do whatever it takes and whatnot. I like that, just that face-to-face confrontation between these two. And granted, he didn't say whatnot, but it was a cool moment, just that cool stare-down between the two of them.
And they talk about the fact that, he looks at Bruce and just says, you've been dead inside for years, and, just further validation that, we're both dead. It's just mine was a physical death, yours is an internal death, emotional death.
Yeah, and it's funny because... Batman can push Jason's buttons. Jason can push Batman's buttons. He knows what's going on inside Bruce Wayne. He knows that, this Batman probably would never admit to himself that, he is emotionally turned off, or he is the dark, brooding Batman. He, separated himself from friends and family and everything. And so when Jason, the reason that he shut himself down, confronts him on it and calls him on it, of course that's going to strike a chord with him. I like the fact that these two know each other so well, even though they're completely different dimensional people. But it's still, the same person inside.
This next fight is so cool.
Oh, dude, man. Once again, it's Donna Troy. And there's some more really cool stuff with Donna as she's like sitting there surveying the damage and destruction. And I like the fact that as she's doing this, she realizes that the monitors don't have a chance. They don't have a clue how to fight as a unit. They have no command, no control. They're divided, and eventually they'll be picked off one at a time. I like the fact that this is an experienced veteran team hero. She's been on some really powerful teams, so she knows the concept of team fighting. Monitors do not. So I like the fact she could recognize that.
The same thing you could say about Wally West, the same thing you could say about Dick Grayson, the same thing you could say about Roy over on the Justice League, you can easily say about Donna Troy. These are the original Titans. These are characters who have been around. They've got a longevity, they've got a long history, and it's great to see these characters stepping up and having that experience and being able to go on that journey with them. I think they are easier to connect with a lot of times than Bruce, Diana, and Clark, only because of the fact that we've seen them grow up and over a longer stretch of time, perhaps.
Yeah.
That's no knock on the Trinity. I like the hierarchy of the DC Universe. The Trinity are on a certain level. These guys are on a different level, but like they deserve to be on that level, if that makes sense. They've earned their stripes. And then you've got, the Teen Titans characters right now who are, where these guys used to be. I like that. It's great.
Well, here's the interesting thing. When you look at like a hero, and especially the whole concept of team fighting, when you start doing it at a young age, it becomes second nature for you whenever you're thrown into another team, that you're able to jump into it right away. The Teen Titans, because really they were, when they first started off as heroes, they started off as a team fighting concept. Yeah, they have their mentors, sometimes they're doing stuff, but really they understand and respect the strength of the team, as opposed to like Superman. Yes, he's a good guy to have on your team, and I'd always pick him first, but is he a team fighter? Batman, yeah, there is the strategist. Yeah, he knows what he's doing, and as long as you listen to him and follow his instructions, you'll probably win because he is that good. But is he a team player? Not really. He's more of a loner. And even Wonder Woman, as wonderful as she is, they're the Trinity. They're separate individuals who are good to have on a team, but, you see what I'm saying?
I can definitely see what you're saying.
Okay. I don't want to knock them, say that I'm knocking them, saying that I wouldn't want them on my team, because I would in a heartbeat. But, if you're going to pick somebody, if you don't have the Trinity to pick from, my first choice, I'm going to reach to the Titans. I'm going to reach to an ex-Titan because they understand the strength of it. Just like I'm also going to reach to a Green Lantern, because they understand the strength of the core.
Well, but I mean, you're talking about three characters, though, that were major members of the Justice League. I think their concept of a team is quite different than the family concept of the Teen Titans. Whereas the core is more of a military unit than a family. Like, Teen Titans are family. The core is more of a well-organized military unit. Whereas, like, the Justice League is, they're like your traditional superhero group that is together for the purpose of doing what superheroes do, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. They have different reasons for being together. The Justice Society is more of a society where they're trying to train and build the better heroes. So it's real interesting that the team dynamics of each of these heroes. I can see what you're saying in the sense that Superman's kind of an entity unto himself, in that he would be a hard person if you were a team leader. Like, I would not want to be Black Canary and having to lead a team with Superman on it.
Right.
Or Batman, or even Wonder Woman, because you're talking about, in a battle, Wonder Woman kicks into Amazon mode. She's going to be that general that leads. I think a Black Canary can keep all of those personalities in check, which is why you need a real special person to lead the Justice League for just what you're saying. But if you want a smooth team with people who understand how to get into that team mode, I agree with you in what you're saying, that the Titans tend to understand being on that same even playing field more so than what you have in the Justice League right now. But I like the different dynamics.
Oh, yeah, big time. And this fight scene, of course, between Donna Troy and the Wonder Girl is just another cool moment, because once again we're showing the immaturity of Wonder Girl. Because as the two are starting their once again, round two, if you want to call it that, or round three, whichever round it is, during the fight, Wonder Girl does let Donna know that she's working for Queen Belthera. and how Belfero's given her purpose and given her direction and just being this positive influence on her. And she's like, I know who I am. Who the hell are you? Room. Power punch. I'm Donna Troy, bitch. Hoorah! Hoorah! I put down the comic. I held up my hands. I pumped in the fist. I gave it a... Oh, dude, I love that. I was like, outstanding.
What about her jealousy, though, of Diana?
Yeah.
This is, again, a woman who never came to terms with her own identity. And as she went through her journey, similar to Donna Troy's, which I really liked this moment because I wasn't sure what her journey was like until they verified it here. And I really like these moments because it just says she went through the Wonder Girl, Troya, Dark Star moment. Nothing stuck in her eyes. But Queen Belthera showed her the way, and she killed Diana in less than a minute with her own lasso. And it's kind of like, boy, talk about jealousy. So she's a lot like Superboy Prime. Like this is like his perfect mate. This is his Wonder Girl because they both have the same issues.
But she's probably not as good looking as his girlfriend back home.
No. And you've got to always remember that he knows he's very one-track minded.
Next, we head back to Kyle and Ray as the monitors, and it's cool because they're viewing the fight of the monitors and all that stuff via Kyle's ring. And once again, they also realize the same problem that Donna saw, that everybody is seeing it, that the monitors, they lack unity, whereas Monarch's army is focused. They're disciplined. They know what they're doing. And Kyle and Ray both know that the battle is over, but they try to figure out, what is so important about what can they do, where can they go with this. They know the monitors are going to lose. It's now we have to deal with this situation. What do we do next?
This is really good, too, because this is the part where we start to see, finally, who Ray is in the whole scheme of things. Like, what happened to him during this time that led him to this point? Right from I love the picture of the Justice League with them where they're standing there. It's actually our Justice League that we had in Identity Crisis, the one that we were taking a look at. So all the more reason that Ray would want to stick around. You've got Hawkwoman and Hawkman. You've got Zatanna, and they're in the same outfits. You've got the Elongated Man, Firestorm. These are all people that we saw gradually taken apart in that particular sequence, and it's really interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting because the Ray 51 was one of the founding members of the JLA, but he really wasn't as the Atom. He was more of the resident scientist, kind of like the intellectual opposite of Snapper Carr. That's Ray's dig, not mine, but I liked it just because you can never go wrong with a Snapper insult.
And it's interesting that he was viewed as that way in this particular world, especially considering the way we've been talking about him, saying that you particularly have been saying that you wanted to see him step up. And at the beginning of this, I was afraid that you were right. In this particular issue, when we're going on there, I'm like, geez, Ray's not really stepping up. But then we saw him do just that.
Now, also turns out that Ray 51 had some superhuman immunity system in him because he never gets sick or anything like that. And it was during a case where this JLA was dealing with this super bioweapon. The lead discovered this super virus, and I'm going to completely butcher how it's pronounced.
Mortococcus?
Mortococcus? Okay. Yeah, the super virus Mortococcus, which turned out to be the mirror of the Ray 51 super immunity. Now, I read back a couple of the back issues, and I didn't see them refer to Val's virus as the Mortococcus, but it's got to be what's affecting Val. It's got to be, what's probably even leading to the Great Disaster. I like the fact that they've been talking about the Great Disaster. We've seen Val sick. Now we're getting a name to it. If Val's thing is anything other than this, I will be upset. So it's cool that they're showing and they're giving more clues as to what is going on here.
I like how they're using traditional JLA history, though, to explain why Ray all of a sudden would be interested in helping other Earths. They met the Justice Society from another Earth and realized that they lived in a multiverse, very similar to what we saw historically, from the old JLA, JSA team-ups. And that's what made Ray realize there are other Earths out there, and on his Earth, it's okay because he's there to defeat that virus, but what happens on another Earth that doesn't have that option? And I love the hero there, the thinking man's hero, who's saying, all right, in this case, I'm the snapper car of this particular universe, but I really, that whole sequence to me really worked for just that purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was kind of neat because he wanted to go out and inoculate the other universes with his DNA, and he was going to be the hero. But unfortunately, Ray 51 died during testing, so our Ray continued on the work, and he used the inoculation. He made it in the shape of the atom. And I like that because that was the thing that the challengers were tracking. Every time they'd come across Ray, they'd see the atom symbol and see it was in somebody else. And that was just Ray doing his own little twist to it. But it also is what allowed Bob to follow them to 51.
Always leaving breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Unwittingly leaving breadcrumbs. Or like Reese's Pieces like E.T. did.
Yeah, one of the two. And of course, it led Bob back to 51, which led to the death of everybody he knows. And you're kind of like, oh, man, that sucks for you, Ray. I feel bad for you, man. I feel kind of bad just, giving him the wah earlier that, yeah, he did it, and it was like kind of his vanity or his arrogance or whatever you want to call it.
Who wouldn't do that as a scientist?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't? What would be the harm in leaving a little tattoo behind? Who would have thunk, that you were going to be hunted down at that point? Imagine that, though, like doing something so simple and causing such disaster because of it. And you're right, it's simple ego.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, poor guy. But this takes us back to Bloodhaven and Brother Eye, which we haven't seen in a couple issues, so I'm glad that they're, throwing back to that and, not letting us forget, or granted we couldn't forget, but, just keeping the kid. They didn't spend a lot of time in it, but they're still, bringing it in. I like when they do that in Countdown, that it's not just one story arc focused in the issue. There's other stuff they throw and give a little color to it.
Well, this goes all the way back to Battle of Bloodhaven,
yeah.
Which I had no idea that it was going to go back that far. It's interesting to see those threads. Monarch was brought in from that particular storyline, but also this Brother Eye sequence was brought in from that storyline. So this is stuff that's been building for quite some time that they've been laying the seeds for us to have kind of play out right now. And this is a story, this Brother Eye one was one that I'm kind of like, okay, well, what's Brother Eye got to do with all this, and how does he fit in? Or it.
Yeah. And you dude, man, I'm sitting there and I'm reading this going, Brother Eye has taken over the Atomic Knights, and he's integrating their technology into his. It's kind of like the resistance is futile, you will be assimilated type thing. I was like, oh, man.
The Borg of the DC Universe?
Yes, of course. I was like, you got to have a good Star Trek reference. But, yeah, I like that, and I was thinking, man, that's got to be tough on them. And then I saw what they did to Firestorm. Dude, man, they're using him as a power source. That's the one that is really, sucks to be Firestorm, because you look at him, he is in pain while they're doing this. They're basically sucking him dry, and I was like, wow. Just the artwork and just the look on his face, I was like, dang, that's not a good thing there. Not a good day to be the good guy.
I like this part with Una, where she's starting to ask she becomes kind of our eyesight into this one, out of loyalty to you, Dr. Blank, you're sort of its father. And interesting with Karate Kid, though, that he comes back and basically says that, the reason why Brother Eye's ignoring them is just because we're beneath its notice, because it's, like, kind of beyond us. And it really is, especially with how huge this thing is, and it's really an interesting story, because this is something that Bruce created for the purpose of keeping an eye and watchdogging the other heroes. And now this is going to come back and bite all of them.
And I like the fact that they're really started thinking, and they got worried, like, wait a minute, Desaad, why was Desaad here? Like, Brother Eye grows by integrating other technology. If there's something from Apocalypse here, like a broom tube, we are about to be in, the problem's about to go from bad to extremely worse. And I like that they're looking and they're seeing, oh no, things are about to get nasty. Hang on for the ride.
Yes, that's okay. This is really a good issue. I really just enjoyed this. This is really starting to heat up because a lot of these storylines that I don't know about you, I needed to see some of these start coming together. Like start showing me how these things are piecing together, and we're starting to see more and more of these threads that are bleeding over into each other, and showing how Countdown actually is a unified story. We just haven't seen it spelled out yet.
Yeah, the backup to this is Doomsday, which I'm glad that they brought in Doomsday and they showed him. Just because, but I am curious, and maybe you can answer this for me a little bit better. His last appearance was in Infinite Crisis number 7. Do we know what happened to him at the end of the Infinite Crisis? Have they shown him again since then?
No, I don't think. I don't remember seeing him. Do you?
No, that's the thing. I don't remember it, and I was wondering if you knew it or if there was something I missed.
I wonder if they're showing this for the purpose of the fact that he's going to be popping up somewhere.
That's what I was kind of wondering, because a lot of times they're doing the villains that tie into the story somehow. Sometimes they're just throwing in a villain, but usually there's some type of connection and tie-in. Are they giving us a little teaser as to something we can expect later on?
I don't know, but I'm guessing that usually these are here for a purpose. The artist on this one, John Bogdanov, and I'm probably totally butchering his last name, but he was an artist on that famous run back when Dan Jurgens was on the book and back when Doomsday was around. So it's got a definite nice nod back to that particular era of Superman, which I really enjoyed. I'm glad some of these artistic choices have to do with the history of the characters that they're spotlighting, so that it makes sense. It has that flow and that feel and that... Because they did the same thing with the Joker. They pulled in Brian Boland from Killing Joke. I like those kind of, mixtures of pulling in people that have actually worked on the characters throughout history to maybe, an artist who's currently working on them today. So it's a nice blending in what they're doing. I can't believe we're doing this from a hospital.
Dude,
go ahead.
This is just beyond. This is, I think, beyond the airport.
Yeah.
Because,
well, I meant to call you and just do an introduction to the show. Then we got on to talking, and we did like a 30-minute segment over there, and now I just called you back, and I was going to leave it at that, but then you're like, well, I'd kind of like to talk about Supergirl.
Yeah. I think actually it kind of fits given where I currently am, where that story is going. I think it's a very appropriate topic for me to talk about.
Actually, for a couple of weeks now, you've been mentioning that you wanted to talk about that particular book.
Yeah, it's one of those books that I could see very easily slipping through the cracks, and even the storyline, the way they're doing it, the way they introduced this, really, it's going to be a huge dramatic story, which I'm glad the way they introduced it. They started off with having her fight this villain named Reacton, and it looked like it was going to be your typical, fluff kind of story where, yeah, he had some powers, but he's up against, Supergirl, so you knew in the end, she would win. And it was actually kind of the first fight he wins, then comes back for the next issue where, she's in the middle of fighting him. Superman actually shows up, recognizing this dude's got some powers. He's got some levels, and he was going to take on it and had her, save some innocent bystanders. And as she's saving these bystanders, she doesn't have, the control that Clark does, and so she grabs one old guy and kind of, breaks some bones when she's taking him away, and then she comes up to this little kid who's, tucked underneath, a desk hidden. And she sees him with the X-ray vision, picks him up, and he's like, oh, Supergirl, I'm not going to die. She goes, oh, no, don't worry, you're not going to die. And then takes him away. Well, Clark recognizes she's having a harder time saving and keeping the people safe, so has her deal with Reacton while he rescues the innocents. And she eventually takes the dude down, and you're thinking, oh, okay, that's the end of the story, neat little story. That's when the twist happens. Afterwards, they're in the hospital, visiting, making sure the people are okay, and the parents of that little boy are just furious with her. See, turns out when the little boy said, I'm not going to die, he wasn't talking about the current fight going on around him. He's got some brain cancer tumor type thing in the brain, and that's what he thought Supergirl was promising that she was going to save him from. And as soon as I read that, I put down the book, said, oh my God, this is outstanding. It completely just one of those things where it had you out of nowhere going, holy crud, this is like really awesome. Clark's going to, handle this and tell him how, the heroes, we each have different powers. And he was going to go the whole line where she basically explained to the kid that she didn't see that how sick he was and that kind of stuff. And right as he's about to do it, she steps and says, no, I'll handle this. And looks the kid in the eye and goes, yes, I will, you will live. I will make it happen. I promise. And that's how the one issue ends. And you're just like, holy crud. And that got me thinking about a lot of stuff because one, she's Kryptonian. Her father was like a super scientist like, Kal-El's father was. So she's got to have this knowledge, somewhere along the lines. Plus also just the other races that, these heroes have come across. There's got to be someone who could cure this type of disease. So how difficult really would it be for some of our heroes to go through and cure these diseases? But that also adds the whole should they do it? Because even just looking the broad side of it, take a look at characters like Cyborg. He's got all the human-machine interfaces. Imagine a person who lost their legs. If they could get some type of legs like that, where they could walk again, or the various technologies. Don't even tell me that the Batmobile runs on regular gasoline, or these the planes and whatnot that they fly in are a straightforward normal fuel. They have to have some type of alternate fuel system going on, whether it's a reactor or whatnot. I don't know, but just these powers and these machines and inventions that these heroes have. What if they were applied into the modern society? What would happen to the human race if they became, if they had access to this type of power levels? And the story is starting to branch off into those kind of questionings, what would happen? And I'm really glad to see the way it's going.
One thing I've liked about her journey in particular, in her own book and in Titans and in just appearances that we've seen her in Legion, in Supergirl and the Legion as well, when she started off, she was not the most likable of characters. Just in the sense that she was very selfish. She certainly was very resentful of Clark and his kind of goody two-shoes outlook on everything, and that she was being judged because that wasn't her, and she was actually sent to Earth to kill Clark. So, she had a very different outlook on things, wasn't sure who she was, who she wanted to be, and that actually has made, at this stage, where we're seeing a more mature Supergirl post-Legion of the Superheroes, and seeing kind of where Kelly Puckett's taking her right now, and where this storyline's going, I'm liking seeing the maturity of her, where she'll selflessly sacrifice herself, if necessary, or put herself at risk, in the way that we see Clark do it. Very similar, we talked about, after 52 when he had no powers. And in the current Legion storyline, you're seeing him take risks when he's powerless, when he could actually die. We've seen her in this storyline. Did you read issue 27 yet?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you're seeing her take chances where she's catching things like a kryptonite bullet, for example, and and where she could die very well. Not even just because of the fact. I mean, she caught it with her hand. Granted, okay, but still, that's kryptonite. Being that close to it, that gets into her skin. What happens? It's a huge risk. She has no idea whether or not she'll survive that particular encounter. I like that. I like seeing that progression from the selfish girl who was more into her and pushing everyone else away, the teen rebel and that storyline that she had going on, to this more mature person who has somehow grown stronger because of her time with the Legion. And I do take it as that's what has really changed her quite a bit. She learned a lot about herself when she was with the Legion. We're seeing her come back now, more accepting of Clark, trying to reach out to him, trying to also develop her own identity. And in seeing that, we see a hero now who is really likable.
Oh, definitely, dude. And the most recent issue, I'm not going to spoil too much of it because it just came out. But, when we see, because she does a little jump kind of to the near future, and we see what the near future holds, especially what happens to people and, mankind and, just the society and the heroes and whatnot. I'd like that little glimpse of it. And then the whole question is, should she do it? Should she not? What's she going to do? it's a really cool story that I'm liking.
How can dude? How can we not talk about the Batman?
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to spoil that.
I'll put a spoiler. We're got a spoiler warning on the beginning.
Okay.
And I'll put in the show notes. We're talking about Supergirl number 27. The Batman were freaking cool.
Yeah, I love the idea because you think about it. These genetic enhancements to people make them stronger, make them multiple clones. So now we have. That's what I took them as.
I did
clones
too.
Of Bruce Wayne.
Because there was more than one, and even when she asked if it was Bruce, he said
like
sort
kind of.
Yeah.
Or sort of, or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. It was one of those. It was that type of implication.
So because as she's going back in time, as he sends her back, he's like, "Tell Clark I said hi." I'm like, "Oh man," because I want to know what happened to Clark, because obviously Clark's not around in that future. How did Clark die? Because was it Bruce? Was it the crisis? What was it? I'm like, damn, dude, that's the kind of stuff where I wish, that's an Elseworld story I would like to see. That story arc, go through and see the development of that Earth. That's what I'd like to read.
I like that DC views each of the universes as having multiple different threads.
Yeah.
Where a certain event changes and causes a splinter, where a particular world, like our world, can have multiple futures. Any of the universes that are in the 52 universes can have multiple different splintering threads based on certain events going, one way or another. I like that concept because it offers writers, it offers art teams, it offers everybody chances to explore different realities, different concepts. To me, that opens up to, if you've got a great idea, it takes place within a sort of a DC universe that fits within the 52 worlds, you can tell that story and feel free to kind of branch off to other worlds and other concepts that you can't tell within the main universe. Elseworlds has always been great with that. A lot of great storytelling, contained storytelling, comes out of Elseworld stories.
It's realistic too. That's what it adds, that element of that one little factor can change the future. You think about it. Had I been a little bit healthier in my living, maybe I wouldn't be laid up in a hospital bed right now. And so somewhere out there's a Sensei whatnot that's all buff and with like a Greek god-like physique. Right.
Well, you know what? It's funny. I actually got in touch with him, and he's going to record our 2-year anniversary episode.
Okay. Finally, we're going to have another. We're going to have a new. You're going to have another co-host. So
we're going
to do the rotation staff. So it's going to be different Elseworlds of Sensei Whatnots joining you.
And honestly, if we connect a little better, you might be out of a job.
I may be out of a job. Okay.
Because it has to be Norge and the Sensei.
Yeah,
the only problem I'm worried about,
just
though,
not.
I'm worried about the buff guy that you're talking about, though, because I'm afraid he's going to beat me up, and he's got some Norge that's godlike or something like that that's going to take my place, and then we're both going to be obsolete.
Well, I figure it's probably the opposite. So that Norge guy on his Earth is like a really wimpy, dorky kind of small fry.
But
it's got to be the opposite.
He may prefer him to me.
Yeah, who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah. There's been so many good books lately that I've been reading that I've been wanting to chat about. Have you read the new All New Adam?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've been reading that, and I like it. I do enjoy it.
I was really afraid for that series because I really enjoyed, and Gail did it again where she nicely bookended, and I loved the whole bit at the end of issue 20 where, I'm a teacher, and, you see him that he's choosing that he's already got his perfect life. He doesn't do the JLA thing because he wants to stay in the world that he's been a part of right there. I like the way she bookended that, where rather than be drawn into this dream world, he was able to break out of it because he already has his dream. He achieved that goal. He's teaching where he wants to teach. He's got students that are into what he's doing. He's got this life as the Atom defending this world that he's a part of, and that was why he was able to break out of it.
Now, one thing, though, I liked the current issue, but there was one thing that did kind of throw me off a little bit, that he was ignoring his teaching duties because he was pursuing what's going on. That was the one thing I didn't like about it. I would have rather seen him still continued up with his teaching, because that's one of the things he really does like being. He likes being a teacher. I can see him like, blowing off the poker game with the other teachers, or, not doing like sociable stuff. But I would have still rather seen him go to teach every day than he leaves the classroom, or maybe even show him as a teaching, he's still thinking about the current project. So it's still occupying him, but he's still doing it. That's the only complaint I could have against it.
Yeah, the only thing, I guess kind of the way I read that, and I might be wrong on this, I guess I kind of read that as this would have been something that would protect his students as well. Being that this is something that could effectively kill them.
Oh, yeah, and he's doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
But it's that one thing, though. It's, and I understand why he's just solely concentrating on this. He's got to figure out what's going on with Ivy Town. This is what is destroying the town itself, so he's got to protect his town. But I don't know, just something, I don't know how they could have done it. Maybe even like a balance between, it's on spring break, or they show him at class, but
Except
he's really not even teaching well. I don't know.
Wouldn't that get a bit tired that every time they describe it as he just happens to have a crisis happen when he's on a break? I guess I'm looking at it this way, and you might, and I'm not saying you have to even agree with me. You can stick with what you're thinking. I look at it as we accept when we see the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies and the Indiana Jones movies and stuff like that. I believe that Indiana Jones really enjoys being a professor of archaeology. He likes talking about that stuff. He likes getting up in front of his class and doing that. He likes that the girl closes her eyes and she's got stuff written on her eyelids about him. But
well, most people like that.
Yeah,
I can see most professors, and I like the fact that he's a college professor, so it's not creepy that he does that.
That's definitely very important. But I guess I look at that, we accept automatically that he will then take a leave of absence to go and handle some crisis situation. I guess because Ryan's teaching at that same level, I'm more accepting of that than I would be if he was an elementary teacher.
Right.
And he took that same leave of absence. So I guess because of just the age level that we're talking about, that it's college students, that I think that to me is more acceptable to have. My father was a college professor. There were times where he was speaking, at different places around the country, where he had to have somebody fill in for a week or two in his class. Now, he outlined everything that was going to be going on in that class and actually set up for the guest speaker to be there, so that way the class would run and go on to the topics that he wanted them to go on to. But I guess I think that that's a little bit more acceptable because of the fact that at colleges they want their professors a little bit more in the public eye because it's good for the university than to bring prestige. Does that make sense to that university and that school? So I guess in Ryan's case, it works for me. I mean, obviously he's not doing that to bring prestige to the university, but I think it's more acceptable for a college professor to take a week off, which I guess that we could easily take that maybe he missed a week.
That's how it read to me, a week. And even that, I could understand that'd be fine, but if you remember the message that was left on him by the dean, by the new dean, it wasn't that he was, it could have been a simple message like, I understand you're in the middle of dealing with a matter, but, like that. But he made it actually sound like Ryan abandoned the class, not set up to, not to have a, backup professor come in, a lecturer or something like that.
And you would think with the professors he knows, though, and I'll actually agree with that. With the professors he knows and with the group that he has, you would think that's something at 21 issues in he already has in place.
Yeah, and they could have very easily, even the message still would have gotten across that he's not teaching and that he's kind of abandoning his students, but just the way you could word it, like, the message from the dean was like, I understand that Professor so-and-so has been filling in for you. Don't you think it would be good if you made an appearance or something like that even? I don't know.
Although where this might work, Jim, might be that this is going to then be addressed in storytelling, whereas Ryan doesnin has in place.
I fully think this is going to be addressed in the story. I think this is going to be part of the problem, and in the end, the Atom's going to win. Come on, it's going to happen. I don't think this is going to be the end of the universe based on coming out of this story arc. But
no,
they're going to address what he's in. Maybe he'll lose his professor job over this. Maybe
we'll see. Maybe we'll see what you're asking for addressed on screen.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I think we will. So that's why I'm not too like, oh God, this is terrible. I'm accepting it. I'm like, I'm noticing it. I hope it's addressed, and I think it will be, just because the level that they're going into, the different, story arcs, and just catching the little tiny details like this, I think it's going to be addressed. So that's why I'm not too like. I still say I enjoyed the title. I'm still enjoying what I'm reading, even though these things are things I've noticed.
I guess my point is, with that particular issue, I was really worried that I wasn't overall going to be into what they were doing. And so far, it looks like they're still keeping the flavor that I like with All New Adam.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's funny, as this discussion's gone on and I've gotten more into your idea, I'm like, yeah, the more you're explaining it, the more I'm kind of agreeing with you in that I think we're going to see that explained on camera. I actually, at this point, I think with how it was put in there, I'm almost thinking it better be explained on camera.
Yeah.
But I have faith that I'm liking what he's doing in his writing, so I have a lot of confidence. This is Rick Remender and Pat Olive on the pencils. Rick Remender's from Fear Agent. Which actually, and that's something I do want to notice, because it's kind of funny, because this issue felt like it took place immediately after, or at least close to after, the events with Kronos in issue 20.
Oh, dude, this had a nice flow from that to this. I could honestly see this taking place 5 days or 7 days after that, after the Kronos stuff. Just because, one, there's the constant reference to what Kronos said, the events that happened, who he is, who Ryan is. It's a natural segue into it.
I liked the bit with the disembodied head. Watching was Charles the Dominator. Family on TV, submission of Nicole Eggert. I'm glad he's keeping the disembodied head and throwing in random television references. And they're funny little moments. I was really afraid, I think that was probably what I was most afraid of in this book, that the great supporting cast that Gail Simone set up was going to be completely, Panda was going to get lost somewhere, Disembodied Head was going to get lost somewhere.
Well, he kind of does get lost somewhere.
Yeah, but but for storytelling purposes. But, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like the sense that this family of characters, this supporting cast that has been so great for the first 20 issues, was all of a sudden going to get misplaced, and we were going to we're moving Ryan to a new town. That type of thing that happens sometimes when writers take over. And I give the creative team a lot of credit for, instead of destroying what was already created there and trying something completely new, it's clear that they're taking it in their own direction. For just some of the things that we're talking about with the college, kind of taking a little bit of a backseat to his work as a scientist in these particular issues, in this particular issue, I should say. But they haven't ignored Panda. They haven't ignored the disembodied head. They haven't ignored the college, and we're probably going to get some. I'm hoping for myself, after a great storyline's been out there of how much that was his dream, that we don't see that dream die. We see him having to try and find the balance. That would probably be very hard. Knowing myself, I have a hard enough time podcasting, much less, getting all my schoolwork done, teaching, and all that. So it really is an issue of, me trying to find a little bit of balance outside of my school, because my job's got to be my number one priority, and it is. But it is an issue of trying to find that balance where I can find time to podcast and get that out there, because I truly enjoy what you and I do. I can't imagine how he would juggle that with being a superhero.
Yeah, that'd be kind of tough.
And being a scientist.
Yeah. Well, he's the scientist as he's a superhero, scientist as he's a teacher. So that's a kind of nice little thing that he can use that. But it's still, I can't wait for the first time he's got to go off planet. Because it's it's going to happen, especially if he's hanging out with the JLA more, if he's hanging out with other heroes, he's going to be leaving soon.
Panda dominated cheese into submission. Many dead. You have put on some weight. Yeah, well, maybe you should eat some more canned cheese. You look like you're shrinking, dude. Just great. I mean, it's that dialogue still there. The things that I really like between the interactions of these characters, they're familiar. Rick Remender definitely did his homework on this. What do you think of the art? Pat Olive on the art? This is the same artist that did the 52 Aftermath, the Four Horsemen series most recently.
Oh, I like it. I like the look.
Because I always liked the art on All New Adam, so it's something that now having Pat Olive on there, I think it's always been good. It's continuing to be good with a new artist on there. I loved when Mike Norton was on there. I actually, that's been the consistent thing with this book. I think the art has been very appropriate to the book all the way through.
And it's not like a dramatic change. It's obviously a different artist, and even when they've had the different artists in there, they've always kept to the same type of art style, if you will.
I totally agree with where you're going with that.
So when you pick it up, there's not a dramatic, whoa, what the heck is this? It's, you're looking at it, you can recognize who is who without them having to say, hey, this is how I'm drawing Panda, or this is how I'm drawing Ryan, or, you can see right away, bam, this is who they are.
Right, and well, there's certain artists that you can say fall into different categories. Right. And, I mean, they each got their own little unique flavor, and you can clearly pick them out, and there's certain distinctions about the way that they draw and the design, which makes it nice to see those artists on a book. But you're right, there's been a consistent choice in that the artists that they've chosen, from John Byrne straight on through to Mike Norton, straight on through, to Pat Olive, straight all the way through. They've had some really solid artists that have a certain things in common in the way that they draw, and that's not ignoring the fact that they have their unique styles, but it isn't anything where they're going so drastically abstract or out of the realm of what was already before. Did you read Detective Comics at all?
I don't think I read the most recent issue.
I guess the most recent issue had another fill-in issue, but I really enjoyed it. It was Peter Milligan.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Next to you, and then when you're ready, just come down the hall looking for Terry. All right?
Okay. I got the nurse in the room.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Well, I'm actually recording a podcast right now. I do a podcast with my buddy, and so we're calling and recording it from the hospital room. Yeah, she looked like me like I'm a nut job.
We are.
Okay, yeah, I am.
Oh no, I'm throwing myself into there too. The writer on this particular issue, I won't spoil it for you, was Peter Milligan, and Dustin. It's Nguyen, and I know one of our listeners. Is it that what it is?
Yeah, it's pronounced Win.
Okay, I totally butcher that every single time, so I'm probably going to always spell his name wrong. I mean, pronounce his name wrong, I should say. But it's funny. A lot of these fill-in issues for Detective Comics I've really enjoyed. Like this one, Peter Milligan's a great writer, and this one turned out to be really interesting. It's built on some themes that have been going on through the Ra's al Ghul storyline. And I liked that because it felt like it was a part of the same series versus it being a fill-in issue that had nothing to do with anything that's been going on previously. So I really enjoyed it. You have Batman back in like kind of the armor suit again.
Okay, yeah, that spirit, spirit of sorrow, or
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I did read that one. Yeah,
it's really it's a good issue. I think the artwork is really sharp. It surprised me because it's supposed to be one of those we commented previously how the fill-in issues a lot of times they're good issues that it keeps a monthly book coming out, and it's nice to have that rather than having no issue. I prefer that to give the creative team a chance to get caught up versus releasing nothing. In this case, though, it was really just a very well put together.
Hey, dude, that fit right in with the overall Ra's al Ghul story arc. That was, to be honest, I wouldn't consider that a fill-in. I would say that's part of the overall arc. It was an aftermath, a conclusion, kind of like the wrap-up of what was done. I really liked that.
Well, no, I guess that's the point I'm making.
Yeah, no, I
think
I'm agreeing with you.
The writer choice that was on there, obviously Peter Milligan was involved in all that. As I'm looking at that, there's references to the Order of St. Dumas, which references back to Azrael on some level. It's really interesting that this issue, I guess, with the fact that I'm expecting Paul Dini a lot of times on Detective Comics, I wanted to note the fact that I thought this was a particularly good issue that didn't have who we consider to be the regular writer on Detective Comics. It stood out for me in a way that I didn't expect it to. Yeah,
dude, I'm completely agreement with you. Complete agreement. This is a fun, nice. It was, yeah.
The interactions between Tim, Bruce, where I thought dead on. There was some great inner dialogue by Bruce in the trophy room. It's nice. It's a one-shot issue.
Yeah.
It's
and
Detective 840. It's Detective 842 is the one that we're talking about.
And it's a one-shot that is a complete story. Like, I had my issues with one-shots before, and I said that Beanie one with the Joker really, cleared me of my problems I had with one-shots. This would be another story that completely had me cool with one-shot stories. This is a beginning, middle, end of a story. It was just this nice, fun read that you could pick it up and you could read it and you would enjoy it.
And it looks great. I mean, the artwork on here is really, really sharp. So I guess it was something. I agree with what you're saying. It felt like it was totally contained within, and I think it is. Being that they chose Peter Milligan and his involvement with all of that. But it's not the regular writer that you normally expect on there, and I really liked and enjoyed that in a way that I didn't expect I was going to. Did you pick up Raven #1?
Yes, I did. And I read it, and I liked it, and I've pre-ordered the Cyborg #1 that's coming out. Any of those, anything that's got a Titan name or a character on it, I'm picking it up.
Damian Scott did some of the artwork on Batgirl, the Batgirl solo series with Cassandra Cain. And I really enjoyed the look of that series, and considering the way that they're crafting this story, that Marv Wolfman's crafting this story, the artwork really fits on a Raven story in a way that I didn't expect. So I like the look on it, especially with the fact that she's in school and they're going that route with it. It's an interesting story.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing her in the Titans series that Winnick's going to be writing, because she's going to be on that team.
Are you excited, obviously, with your love of the Titans? Are you liking these various spotlights of Titans characters prior to that?
Yeah.
Because there's a Cyborg one coming.
Yeah, I've pre-ordered that bad boy. I'm on that one, and I like seeing that because this is the future heroes, and granted these are the older ones, so these are you can't even say they're no longer teens. So they've shown these characters mature. They've shown them grow up, and I like the fact that we're getting another adult team out there. So, yeah.
It's interesting, though, because Raven's, her storyline's been kind of changing, that she's a lot younger now than perhaps she has been portrayed in the past. And I'm glad to see Wolfman having an opportunity to work with this Raven in this age level, where she is more of the traditional teen, so to speak.
Yeah, and they explained her. A lot of times I have issues with when comics like digress someone's age and all that stuff, and I'm like, come on, let them grow up. But this one worked, and because of her mystic nature and all that stuff, so it's acceptable. I'm kind of curious to see her and the others interacting with her, seeing her as a younger person. Are they going to look at her as she is? The adult Raven that they know, or are they going to look at her and see her as a teenager? Is there going to be those issues that they have with her? That's one of the things I'm looking forward to.
I'm also looking forward to seeing if they address anything about her relationship with Beast Boy.
Yeah.
Because that was a lot of that stuff was handled in short snippets in 52, and we didn't get to see a whole lot of that. Or, in flashbacks, versus actually getting to see a lot of that fully on camera. So I'm curious to see if that's something that Winnick is going to address in the series. I'm with you in the sense that this is a de-aging of a character that I don't have a problem with, because it had to do with a resurrection anyway.
Makes you wonder how much planning were they doing when they first introduced her, first brought her back. And were they thinking along these lines? Were they thinking doing a new Titan series? Were they thinking, I'd love to pick somebody's brain, just seeing how far, or just how much of this is reactionary to, this is a character that people are liking. How much of this was from day one? They said, okay, we're going to kill her off here. We're going to bring her back here. We're going to do this with the team.
I'm willing to. I'll be perfectly honest with you on that one, and I'm a big advocate on the fact that there's a framework in place. I don't think that they had planned on putting the original Titans team back together when they brought her back. When they brought her back originally, I guess I was taking it as they brought her back for the Jeff Johns run with Superboy and Kid Flash and Wonder Girl and all that. And I think this has just been over time. That team has evolved, and we've got Ravager and Kid Devil on those teams.
Yeah.
And there's a point right now where it's like, should we put Raven there? Or now all of a sudden they have this opportunity. They're putting the old band back together. And I think that came out of that. And I think it's going to lead to interesting storytelling, though, with what has happened to her.
Yeah.
In that you're going to see this team kind of reacting to that as well. So I don't know. I was surprised at how much I really enjoyed that miniseries as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with Cyborg, and I wonder if they're going to do others of the Titans. Yeah, do individuals for those as well.
Are you a fan of these like Year One stories, like Teen Titans Year One?
Yeah.
When they're doing that, because the artwork in that is another one where it's Carl Kerschel on the artwork, Sergio, it's Lapointe, and Steph Peru, and it's another one of those that kind of comes off as like a animated / painted style.
Yeah, I'm not like gung ho psycho. Oh my god, I can't wait for the next issue to come out. But when I read it, I enjoy what I've read, and I like the stories. I'm picking them up, without even second hesitation. I'm picking them up. If I had other reading, they are on the bottom of the stack, but it's not bottom of the stack because they're bad. They're bottom of the stack because they don't tie directly into the main universe going on, and I want to keep up on that. So these are palate cleansers, definitely good palate cleansers for me. An enjoyable story that it's a fun read. It's good looking. I like the fact that it is a different style than what the regular Titans and the Tim's book looks like. I'm glad that this is but it's not a funky, freaky style. It's still a good look.
I think this is a little higher up in my stack than it is on yours, and I think because I grew up with these guys being sidekicks in this role, that this is to me revisiting my childhood. And I mean, it's definitely a new take, but there's enough of the classic feel in there. It's great to see Dick Grayson, Roy, Aqualad, Wonder Girl, Wally back as Kid Flash. I love the bit at the end of issue 3 where you've got Bruce coming in and saying, "We're needed in Gotham, say goodbye to your friends." And Dick kind of, and it fits the whole history we've seen with Bruce and Dick, where there's that resentment that Dick had almost because Dad was very controlling. I've got to go. And they're all wondering, is he going to even be back? Because they see that. And I really like that kind of personal look at their friendships and what it was like to have a friend whose dad was Batman. And that, Bruce wouldn't actually always be considered the nicest of fathers. Like, almost they'd have sympathy for him.
Yeah, he'd kind of be the, oh man, your dad's tough, dude. That stinks. Yeah.
I mean, look at Roy, he's running around with Ollie. And Ollie, in those days was happy-go-lucky. Uh-huh. He'd be a lot of fun to hang with. So it's an interesting dynamic, and I really like that how this is exploring not just their relationships together, but their relationships with their mentors, and how that affects their relationship as a group and as a friendship. It actually, to me, when I look at a lot of my kids in their classroom, and I see the kids that have play dates with other kids, and the ones that aren't able to, you see that there's a difference because of parents and, their jobs and their outlooks and the way they're doing that. That would affect the children. It affects, what those friendships look like and how much they do outside of school. And in this case, the Titans being school, sort of, where they're, this is their playtime, their recess, their chance to be together and kind of to do their kid thing, but then Dad comes in and ruins it.
Yeah.
And I like that. It's because they're at that stage where they want more independence, but they haven't quite reached that point yet where the parent's willing to let go. And I really have liked that exploration. And I do think that there's a certain part of it for me that I'm revisiting my childhood friends in the sense that I grew up with these characters when they were sidekicks. Before even the Wolfman and Perez Teen Titans kicked off, a lot of these characters, I read them in their books with their mentors. Especially Dick Grayson. So the Batman Dick Grayson moments were ones that I particularly geeked out over and how they were handled. And I too like the artwork. I like the it is sort of animated, but then it's kind of like a hybrid between an animated look and the stuff that we're liking with what Howard Porter was doing the painting on Trials of Shazam. It kind of falls in between those two versus it being more one way or more the other. And I like the kind of hybrid that's done for this because it seems to fit the age that these characters are supposed to be in this series. So it was one that we haven't had a chance to really talk about that one, and seeing as we were talking about Raven, it kind of almost makes sense that we have to talk a little bit about that. It's nice because it's good for Titans fans right now who just want to kind of read things in the Titans universe and, kind of stay away from everything else. There's a lot of choices out there of really good books. If you're enjoying exploring the teens, you can follow the solo titles, a lot of the Titans team members like Supergirl. You can take a look at Raven. You can take a look at Teen Titans Year One. And really, if you don't want to get heavily involved in all the other crossovers and all the other books, there's a nice little teen universe that you can just explore in DC right now that I think is being well handled. They had that Wonder Girl miniseries, and these seem to be kind of ending and starting a new one at a right time for people who are just kind of following those things. And then there's psychos like us that follow everything.
Right, I know. Well, I was thinking that.
I was curious as to how you were liking it, though, because I know that tends to be your team, the Titans.
Yeah. And, it's given me what I want, and I'm liking it, so.
Did you pick up the Lost Annual? I haven't had a chance to read it.
Yes, I did.
Yet. Did you read it?
Yes, I did. I loved it.
Yeah, that was the Michael Allred did the artwork on that.
Yeah, that was another one where, I liked the look, I liked the story. I was like, oh, okay, I was glad I picked it up. It makes me want to pursue more of those back issues, makes me want to pull up the, actually reread, give it another try to the, Showcase Presents Teen Titans, that kind of stuff. I want to see, let me give it another read through. Let me give it another try. See what I like, see what I don't like. It makes me want to pursue the, the Wolfman, Perez stuff before, before the Titans that I jumped in on, see what those guys did, what he did with that,
I'm surprised that entire series hasn't been collected.
Yeah.
I don't know what the holdup is, because it is so well loved and so well spoken of. And the Titans, it's the Teen Titans is, especially when the Johns run hit, like that to me seems like when that run first started coming out and was successful, I don't understand why they didn't just start re-releasing it then. Wouldn't you have said that people are Titans happy right now? Why don't we put more Titans out?
Well, maybe we'll see more.
Yeah,
that'd be nice if they actually did that.
Yeah, because are you anxious to read that stuff?
I'm getting there. It's one of those things where I'm starting to look at, when I order, when I purchase my comics, I'm looking at, okay, what kind of trades do we have out there? What kind of issues do we have out there? I don't think I'm going to go after all the individual the floppies, just because that's another huge undertaking for me, and I don't think I'm going to do that. But I am going to look for, what stories are traded and pick up some trades.
All right, let me ask you this question: if they started announcing that they were re-releasing the Titans run, the Wolfman and Perez run, how interested are you in? Like, would you perk up and say, "I've got to get that"? And if so, what format would you like it in?
Oh, definitely would pick it up. I'd want it in the trade format.
Color or showcase?
See, I like the color over the showcase just because it gives you the whole overall look of the comic and the overall feel, and the mood and whatnot. But if they said they were doing it in showcase, I would definitely pick it up because then I know it'd be less money, and I am a little bit of a cheap son of a gun. But also, I know it would be that larger volume, so I knew it would have everything right there. And it'd be nice and handy, and you can just grab it up and read it. So either one, I would personally prefer color trades, even if they did one arc at a time. But either format would work for me.
Yeah, I guess I'm surprised that certain things have not started to be collected in those formats. And Titans is one that it's kind of to me seems like a no-brainer that it should be chronologically collected.
Yes. Well, I do have to go again. So.
All right. Well, we'll end off right here too. So, you feel better, my friend, and we've got certainly plenty.
I am
here.
Feeling better. To be honest with you, from the way I was feeling when I first came here to the way I'm feeling right now, it's dramatic difference. So.
Well, it is going to be the other gym that you were mentioning, the big brutish Jim.
Yeah, the buff
for the next
Jim.
episode. So you'll have a couple weeks off.
Okay, cool. Let him carry the load for a little bit.
All right. Feel better, my friend, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hello.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Can you hear okay?
I can hear you good. Can you hear me?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, this is going to be an interesting recording then. Since you can't hear me, you're a real son of a bitch.
Well, fuck you too.
Hey, I can hear you, dude. You can't hear me, remember?
What?
Exactly.
How about that shoveling, huh?
Oh, dude, we've been doing
blows.
it all. Dad and I have been doing it all day, and we're running a snowblower and shoveling.
That's
And we
crazy.
just now have our driveway where, we have it under control.
Yeah, we're paying some guy to plow us out.
Oh,
It's going to be $20 well spent.
yeah. Well, you've seen our driveway's a little bit longer.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But,
I don't blame you. I went out there today, though, and I got nowhere to put the car. So I had to go out to go to Kaiser and totally got stuck in the driveway twice. That was after shoveling myself out. Because there's that sheet of ice underneath everything.
yeah.
So it's crazy. This is nutty weather.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, we did do 17, so we're 16, 15, 14, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Let me know when you're ready.
You want to hear something weird?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 16, 15, and 14, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, no. What's the something weird?
Okay. When we normally record, I always feel a little bit uncomfortable, recording for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was, because at home I got my nice desk chair that I sit in.
Right.
This right now, I grabbed my WWE folding chair,
Okay.
and I'm sitting in my folding chair instead of my comfortable
So
chair.
wait a minute. You have the option right now to sit in something comfortable. Instead, you're sitting into a chair that is the identical twin of the chair
Yes.
that you sit in here that you
Yes.
always complain about.
Yes.
Why?
For some reason, this is the first time I'm doing it, because every time we record, I'm always like, I'm not in the groove. I'm actually, this is in the groove.
So you feel like you're going to be a little off unless you're uncomfortable?
Exactly.
Wow.
I didn't say it was normal. I said something weird.
No. You did say it was weird, and I got to agree with you on that one. So you can't podcast unless you're uncomfortable.
Pretty much, it looks like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. We've done it in the airport.
That's
We
right.
did it in the hotel room while driving.
I would argue the chairs in the airport were probably more comfortable than the chair you usually sit in.
I don't know.
Really?
But there's also the whole uncomfortableness of the whole situation surrounding why we were recording, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that uncomfortableness going, and
Couldn't you sit in a comfy chair, though, and we share some really uncomfortable story from your past at every episode and then get the same effect?
I don't know.
I'm just thinking that might have less after effect. Because, like, sitting in the uncomfortable chair, obviously, you probably a backache afterwards or something like that. Maybe if we just share an uncomfortable story, although then you've got the psychological embarrassment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, see,
You're in a no-win situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this works better.
I could kick you periodically if you'd like to sit comfortably.
Well, but you're not here, so...
No, I'm just saying here, though, we could, put, a lazy boy here, and I could just, periodically hit you with something.
Oh, dude, you put a lazy boy. I'm falling asleep. Come
Wait,
on.
you've done that in the other chair.
I know. That's what I'm saying. If I could do it in the other
You've
chair...
done that in the other chair when we've been on other people's shows. All of a sudden I look over and I'm like, dude, help me out here. We're having a conversation. You're snoring.
Hey, you catch me those late nights after a long day of work, I'm falling asleep.
Can't sleep, must podcast. Remember, that's your mantra. It's on your shirt.
I know, but sometimes,
You gotta sleep.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, let's record our show.
Okay.
Now that you're suitably uncomfortable.
I figured you were recording the whole time.
Oh, I am.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry, this is being recorded.
Oh, yeah.
But we can't really use this until the end anyway, and I've already got lots of stuff for the end from our wonderful guests, so
True.
we don't really need this, but I'll save it.
Oh, okay. Well, off for another time.
It will be aired. Because I think it's so fascinating that you want yourself to be uncomfortable to record. We'll have to work on that.
Okay.
All right.